Lord Sikong's enforcers have already arrived, and the old man's face is turning whiter by the second. When a realm enforcer is forced to choose between blood and duty, someone's loyalty is about to burn. Leave a like and subscribe to see which bond breaks first. Lord Sikong. The purple-robed old man's face turned a shade whiter when he saw Sukong Hanzhao and his enforcers. He hurriedly stepped forward to greet the group, but Sukong Hanzhao waved him off and said coldly, "No need to explain. I have already learned everything there is to learn about this matter." "Haha, Lord Sikong, long time no see." The leader of the dark, profound practitioners let out a hearty laugh before walking up to the commander. "I have heard that the Lord Enforcer overseeing this realm is kin and an old friend, and I was planning to visit you sometime later. To think that we would meet right now. Who are you calling your kin and friend?" An angry cry froze the dark, profound practitioner in his tracks. Glaring at the leader with anger, Sukong Hanzhao waved his arm and ordered, "Take them down!" The enforcers rushed forward with irrefutable might. Caught off guard, the 13 dark, profound practitioners were suppressed before they could do anything. Stunned and confused, the leader of the dark, profound practitioners dared not resist overtly. Instead, he asked with widened eyes, What are you doing, Lord Sikong?" "HMPH," Sukong Hanzhao said angrily. On the day Emperor Yun was crowned, he decreed that the profound practitioners of the 3 divine regions and the northern divine region are to put their past behind them and treat each other as equals. You are all beneficiaries of Emperor Yun, and yet you disobey his decree and even smear his and our names in mud. Unforgivable. No, Emperor Yun is our heaven. We have all fought together with Emperor Yun back then. We would never disobey him. Shocked by his accusation, the dark, profound practitioners tried to defend themselves. Lord Sikong, we are kin, and we have all suffered under the yoke of the 3 divine regions. Don't you understand why we're doing this? How could? You dare defend yourself with twisted words? Sukong Hanzhao waved his arm and dropped a devastating blast of divine sovereign energy on the group. Crack. The sound of shattering bones was so terrible that the profound practitioners of the purple profound clan turned white with terror. The blood-curdling screams especially felt like they were tangibly squeezing their hearts. Sukong Hanzhao had shattered the leg bones of all 13 dark profound practitioners with one palm strike. After he lowered his arm, he declared firmly, "Emperor Yun's decree applies to all no matter the class or race. Anyone who defies it will be punished." The groveling dark profound practitioners groaned piteously. The pain was so terrible that their clothes became drenched in sweat almost immediately. "Lord Sikong, we have seen the error of our ways, so please, for the origin that flows in our veins, mercy. Break their limbs and hang them outside the Enforcer Bureau for 9 days. Make it clear that anyone who begs for them will be subjected to the same punishment." Sukong Hanzhao ignored the begging and ordered a crueler punishment. The sound of breaking bones and blood-curdling screams resounded once more, and the 13 dark profound practitioners lost their arms as well. Further back, the younger profound practitioners of the purple profound clan had turned as pale as a sheet. At the beginning, their hatred for the 13 dark profound practitioners ran bone-deep, but now, they actually felt pity for the offenders. "Drag them away," said Sukong Hanzhao while turning away. "Yes, sir." 2 enforcers tied up the utterly beaten dark profound practitioners with profound energies and began dragging them toward the place they would be hung. For a time, an oppressive silence dominated the scene. Then, beard shivering and heart shivering even harder, the purple-robed old man took a step forward and bowed deeply to Sukong Hanzhao. "Lord Sikong, thank you." "Unnecessary," Sukong Hanzhao cut him off with a raised hand and a cold voice. "We are simply fulfilling our duty. It is the mission Emperor Yun has bestowed upon us." He proceeded to sweep his gaze across every man and woman before uttering, "You may war against whoever to the death, and the enforcers will not interfere with your business. We will ask you not to bother us with such nonsense either. But if it involves Emperor Yun's decrees, may the downfall of these villains be all the example you need." Sukong Hanzhao's domineering attitude and heartless words should have invoked shock and terror, but the purple-robed old man actually let out a long sigh of relief instead. He bowed even deeper and said, "Emperor Yun's saving of the world will never be forgotten. His unifying of the 4 divine regions is good fortune upon all of the primal chaos. From here on out, the purple profound clan will obey Emperor Yun's decrees as if they came from heaven itself. If the enforcers ever has need of our service, we too will." "Unnecessary," Sikong Hanzhao clasped his hands behind his back before taking off into the sky. He was gone in but the blink of an eye. The enforcer's work had been forceful, domineering, clean, and efficient to the max. It would be a long time before anyone would forget about them, if ever. For a long time, the purple-robed old man stared at the horizon where the enforcers had vanished. Then he spun around to face his people and shouted animatedly, "Did you see that? Did you see that? Who dares say that the enforcers will prioritize their own after today? Who dares say that Emperor Yun will take the dark, profound practitioner's side?" A small group of people bowed their heads in shame. "Yes, this junior was foolish and narrow-minded. From now on, I will rebuke anyone who dares to challenge Emperor Yun and the enforcer's fairness with all my heart. Emperor Yun truly is the unparalleled emperor of the 4 divine regions. He truly is a man who is deserving of the worship of the entire primal chaos." "These enforcers are so cool," Yun Wuxin exclaimed in admiration. She and Yun Qi had arrived just in time to watch the whole thing from beginning to end. Suddenly, she changed her tune and said, "I can't believe the nerve of those dark, profound practitioners, though. It is thanks to Father that they got to enjoy everything they got to enjoy today. How dare they tarnish Father's reputation so?" Yun Qi withdrew his spiritual perception from the distance before replying with a meaningful expression. "The enforcers have probably entered this star region just recently. In order to remove the denizens' natural caution and rejection in the shortest amount of time possible, it is necessary to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys." 1. Kill the chicken to warn the monkeys. Yun Wuxin turned to him in astonishment. Yun Qi continued to smile. "Correct. However, the monkeys are real, but the chicken is fake. Do you get what I'm saying?" It took Yun Wuxin only a moment to realize his meaning. She looked in the direction the enforcers had disappeared to and exclaimed in shock, "You mean those dark, profound practitioners were pretending the entire time?" "That's right." While taking joy in the fact that his daughter was intelligent, Yun Qi continued to explain, "Currently, we are pushing for both the dark, profound practitioners and the profound practitioners of 3 divine regions to put the past behind them and treat each other as equals. To do this, the enforcers must choose between punishing a profound practitioner of the 3 divine regions in defense of a dark, profound practitioner, or the other way around. You understand why the latter is far more effective, even though fairness is ensured for both cases." Yun Wuxin slowly, but surely puzzled out the process Yun Qi had explained to her. The show allowed the enforcers to remind both races of the importance of living in harmony, establish the enforcer's authority in the shortest amount of time possible, eliminate existing prejudices, and the common belief that Emperor Yun would definitely take the dark, profound practitioner's side, because he was the former devil master. It was a move that killed many birds in one stone. "Is this one of the secret measures you implemented, Father? It's not bad," Yun Wuxin praised with sparkling eyes. At the same time, her disgust for the 13 criminals had turned from disgust to sympathy and respect. The performance was fake, but there was no faking breaking bones and being hung in public. "This is one of your Auntie Wai's favorite tricks," Yun Qi explained. "Moreover, she understands deeply the foolishness of repeating the same trick twice, so she has developed thousands of scenarios for this one trick alone." Yun Wuxin's respect for Kai Waiao skyrocketed even as her lips parted in astonishment. "Auntie Waiao is amazing," she murmured with a look of adoration. "Father, do you think I can visit Auntie Waiao and ask for her guidance? She's not too busy to entertain me, is she?" "There's no need." However, Yun Qi surprised her by shaking his head. "You won't be able to learn her style anyway." "Ah." Yun Wuxin didn't understand his meaning. Yun Qi gazed to the distance again as he explained in a slightly melancholic tone, "The trick is ultimately secondary to the acumen. Only a person who has been through everything would know how to employ the right trick against the right person at the right time and under the right circumstances. Waiao's life is one where she has met all the facades of humanity. It isn't something any woman can hope to emulate or even imagine. The life experience she must have gone through to become an empress who can rule the entire universe. It is my sincerest wish that you will never have to walk that path." Yun Wuxin fell silent for a very long time. She thought she understood what her father was saying. "Come, it is time we move to our next destination." Yun Qi took flight. "Where to? Is it another star realm?" Yun Wuxin followed closely behind her father. She was already much faster than when she had first entered the God realm. Since their journey began, Yun Qi had been assisting in her cultivation by tempering her body with the great way of the Buddha and the divine miracle of life. As a result, Yun Wuxin wasn't trying particularly hard to progress her cultivation, but the speed at which she was progressing was still something no profound practitioner of an equal realm could ever hope to achieve. Surprisingly, Yun Qi didn't fly long before coming to a stop. They had stopped at the Enforcer Bureau of this star realm. The 13 dark, profound practitioners, whose limbs were shattered a moment ago, were already hanging on the roof of the building. Their divine king auras were a shock to anyone who was passing by the area. It showed them the consequences of disobeying Emperor Yun's decree and the strength, fairness, and strictness of the Enforcer Bureau. It told them that the law would be obeyed even if the criminal was a dark, profound practitioner themselves. It was 1,000 times more effective than any speech or admonishment anyone could come up with. The 13 dark, profound practitioners were suspended in midair by long, thin steel cables. It was so gruesome that it was unbearable to look at. Their bones might have been broken, but they were still divine kings. They could have escaped any time they wanted to, but the onlookers believed they wouldn't because of the fear of Emperor Yun the enforcers had put into their hearts. Yun Qi descended toward the 13 dark, profound practitioners, but didn't dispel his veil of invisibility. Then he said, "Thank you. It cannot be easy." The 13 suspended dark, profound practitioners who looked like dead bodies from a distance widened their eyes in utter disbelief. Then Yun Qi's figure appeared for a brief instant to affirm that they weren't hallucinating. He was only 10 steps away from them. Shock, excitement, disbelief. Every cell in their bodies was shivering uncontrollably. Every drop of blood was boiling with emotion. Your Majesty." Personally, they preferred to address him as Your Magnificence or Devil Master. It was because Emperor Yun and Your Majesty belonged to the 4 divine regions. Only Your Magnificence and Devil Master were for the Northern Divine Region and the Dark Profound Practitioners. "This is nothing. Compared to what Your Majesty has done for us, this is nothing at all." The speaker was literally crying as he said this. To be approached and even consoled by the Devil Master himself. Forget this bit of pain, he could die 1,000,000 times now and still feel not a shred of regret. To sacrifice for Your Majesty and the Northern Divine Region will only ever be an honor, never a hardship, another dark, profound practitioner said with a tremor. The dark, profound practitioner's loyalty and reverence for Yun Qi might not ever be surpassed by anyone from the 3 divine regions. Yun Qi gave them one final nod before leaving the scene. Forget the humiliation. The 13 dark, profound practitioners almost couldn't feel the pain in their bodies anymore. When the excitement finally faded, what was left behind was an utter lack of regret and ceaseless pride for having served the Devil Master. While Yun Wuxin was flying next to Yun Qi, she kept glancing sideways at her father's face again and again and again. "Did you draw something on my face?" Yun Qi suddenly met her gaze and asked. Yun Wuxin's eyebrows curled into crescents as she giggled. "No, I was just thinking how blessed I am to have a father that I can admire for the rest of my life." Her father had only made a brief appearance, but it was enough to move the dark, profound practitioners to tears. For the longest time, all she saw from Yun Qi was his fatherly side. It was only when she began her journey that she realized little by little that her father was also a king who stood above all others. "Well," Yun Qi replied approvingly, "I'm not going to tell you not to think of me like that. In fact, please do your best not to be disappointed in me too soon." "Hee. So where are we heading next, father?" "Our next destination is the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm, the Southern Region King Realm I told you about before. It will be difficult to adapt to the atmosphere of a king realm, so you should." "Oh, I know. It's the king realm where your consort Grace lives. As far as I'm aware, everyone who's been made your consort is an incredible person. Take me there already, father. I want to meet her as soon as possible." 1. On the 3rd month of their journey, Yun Qi took Yun Wuxin to her very first king realm, the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm. Obviously, the Deep Sea God Emperor Kang Shu was waiting for them when they arrived. "Welcome, Your Majesty and Your Highness," she said with a voice as gentle as autumn water while curtsying gracefully. Yun Wuxin returned the gesture. "Greetings, Auntie Shu, I'm Wuxin." Yun Qi had told her briefly about Kang Shu a long time ago. Maybe it was because his explanation was too simple, but she couldn't help but stare at her for a moment. Of course, Yun Wuxin knew that her father's consort would be an incredible beauty. That was one thing she didn't even need to think about. However, Kang Shu's beauty went far beyond just a pretty face. Her liquid eyes, soft lips, delicate eyebrows, snow-white hands, cascading black hair. Everything about her called out to one's desire to protect. She was like a catkin in a tornado, a feather on the sea. If Yun Qi hadn't told Yun Wuxin about her, she would never have believed that Kang Shu was a god emperor who ruled a king realm. She was also certain that no one who saw her for the first time would ever be able to make the connection. Kang Shu shot Yun Wuxin a beautiful smile and said, "My apologies, Wuxin. I should have prepared a first meeting gift for you, but I was only informed of your arrival 4 hours ago. As a compromise, I offer you anything that is to your fancy within the 10 directions deep sea realm." It wasn't just her countenance and temperament. Her voice was velvety in a way that tickled the soul, and every word she spoke was soothing like the breeze of a deep valley. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was a luxury to be able to hear her speak. "Thank you, Auntie Shu." Yun Wuxin saluted her again before blurting out, "You're so pretty, Auntie Shu. Your voice is incredibly melodious as well." She didn't know why, but she had been filled with the desire to praise Kang Shu from the moment she saw her. Kang Shu responded with another smile before saying, "You are the one who's cute and pretty, my little princess. No wonder His Majesty pampers you so." Although Kang Shu had shown up in person to receive Yun Qi, she was only accompanied by her personal attendant, Ruiyi. The sea gods and divine envoys were nowhere to be seen. Also, Ruiyi had been keeping her gaze trained on the floor and kept silent the entire time. Not once did she look at Emperor Yun or hide the overflowing indignance in her half-lidded eyes. "You don't have to receive us yourself. As the deep-sea god emperor, you must be busy with work," Yun Qi said in an indifferent tone. "The blue silent sea lies north side of this star realm. I plan to take Wuxin there on the blue sea fierce shark." The blue sea fierce shark was the largest profound beast ever captured in the current universe, and the deep-sea god emperor's exclusive mount. Naturally, Yun Qi wouldn't miss the opportunity to show it to his daughter. "At number percent," Ruiyi finally looked up. If eyes could shoot fire, Yun Qi's face would be engulfed in flames already. She had thought that Yun Qi had finally found that non-existent conscience in his heart, and decided to visit Shui, but no, the Sonovabich only came to borrow the blue sea fierce shark. Kang Shu replied in her velvety voice, "Your Majesty and Wuxin have visited multiple star realms before coming here, right? Why don't you take a short break before continuing on your journey? Your Majesty may not feel fatigue from the journey, but Wuxin is still a young woman. She won't be able to enjoy her trip to the fullest if she is tired. I have already prepared some snacks. Why don't you give them a try?" "That sounds great," Yun Wuxin exclaimed before Yun Qi could give his response. "I want to see Auntie Shu's place anyway." "Very well." Yun Qi had no choice but to accept. Almost 2 years had passed since that fateful battle, but the deep-sea god realm remained deeply marred by the scars it left behind. In fact, to this day, some of Yun Qi and Long Bai's energies still hadn't faded. As a result, the deep-sea capital had been temporarily located to the east. Over there, things were looking much better and improving. Considering the scale of the battle back then, it is impressive that the deep-sea god realm has restored so much in such a short time. Yun Qi praised, or was he, as they made their way toward the capital city. Kang Shu replied, "The deep sea was severely damaged by that battle, but its roots were ultimately untouched. Given proper care, it is only a matter of time before it regains its former glory." "I don't sense a new sea god either," Yun Qi added. "Your concern soothes me, Your Majesty." Kang Shu's smile was as smooth as silk, and her voice as soft as cotton. "It is true that we lost a lot of sea gods and a large majority of our divine envoys, but Your Majesty now holds the universe in his palm, and we are under your protection. If no enemy will attack us while we are weak, then we may as well nurture our talent patiently and with consideration for the future. It is better to be slow than to make a regrettable, potentially irreversible decision out of haste, no?" Yun Qi looked at her. "You are quite the rational and patient god emperor. Your style is vastly different from your brother's." Kang Shu replied, "My brother may look wild and unruly, but he really possesses a sharp and abstruse mind. I don't deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence as him." "I won't deny that. A man who is praised time and again and entrusted with a most important position by the Empress herself cannot be simple." Suddenly, Yun Qi's tone took a change, and his black eyes turned a few shades darker. "Your humility is excessive, however. You have only been God Emperor for a year, but you already have the entire southern divine region under your control. Quite a few God Emperors would have words with you if they knew about your judgment of yourself." Kang Shu shook her head. "I was plagued by a grave illness and lusted after by the southern sea. For half my life, I didn't even get to see the sun and moon above my head. What could I do to stave off the boredom and loneliness? I read the letters, studied the ancients' wisdom, learned from my ancestors' mistakes, perused the happenings of the realms, and observed the changes of the world. While saying this, she caught a single flower that had somehow attached itself to her sash and released it so it might continue drifting to the vast unknown, alone. Before I knew it, 10,000 years had passed me by, and the 9,000-star realms of the great southern divine region have become as natural as the inner workings of my own mind. Yun-Chi. What I have is knowledge and only knowledge. In terms of the ability to rule both man and the world, I would not even dare to compare myself to my brother, much less accept your Majesty's praise as the truth of my abilities. In summary, the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm is doing well only because I am Consort Grace, and because my brother's influence when he was still the God Emperor hasn't yet faded completely. For a time, Yun-Chi was actually lost for words. As it turned out, Kang Xiu's terrifying hoard of knowledge was built atop an unimaginable period of bleakness and loneliness. It was 10,000 years of confinement where she couldn't even view the sky itself. The image alone was so heavy it was suffocating. Why did she try so hard to live even though her life could only be described as a little hell of her own? It was simply because she didn't want to betray everything Kang Shishan had done for her. Yun Wuxin looked back and forth between Kang Xiu and her suddenly quiet father. She was self-aware enough to know that the junior shouldn't say anything in this situation. After they arrived at the capital, Kang Xiu led them straight to her bedroom instead of the main hall. The bedroom was warm, comfortable, peaceful, and quiet. The attendants within the palace and the divine envoys outside the palace had already been sent away. I have sent the servants away knowing that your Majesty has little love for conventional formalities and noise. Although Kang Xiu had been his consort for over a year, this was the first time he had entered her bedroom. For a King Realm God Emperor's bedroom, its decor was unbelievably simple. The ornaments were plain, and the colors were monotonous. However, there definitely existed a form of elegance in this plainness that would put many people's senses to shame. "I see you are as simple as Kang Shishan is lavish," Yun-Chi commented casually. Considering Kang Xiu's past, he understood why she would prefer this style. "In that case," Kang Xiu stared into Yun-Chi's eyes as her lips curled into a beautiful smile. "Which one do you prefer more, lavishness or simplicity? I choose whatever I want at the time." Again, Yun-Chi spoke casually while taking a seat. "Does there exist another answer for me?" "Tusk." At the back, Ruyi hit a disdainful click of the tongue. Kang Xiu chuckled. "You are the only one who's qualified to give such an answer, Your Majesty." "Ah!" Suddenly, Yun Wuxin let out an exclamation of surprise. She had been exploring the bedroom since they came in, and right now she was standing in front of a wooden table and staring at a spread-open painting. Only a small half of the painting had been completed. It portrayed simple scenery with simple creatures, birds, fishes, and insects, in it. But the art was so masterful it gave the observer the illusion that they were inside the painting itself. Yun Wuxin felt like she was actually inside that tiny corner of the painting listening to the wind and watching the flying birds and insects. Even greater was the mood that was beyond any adjective to describe flowing out of the paper. Feng Zuer loved calligraphy and painting, and Yun Wuxin sometimes practiced them when she wasn't cultivating. However, the art before her had surpassed everything she had ever seen in her life. It had surpassed even her understanding of art itself, all this from a single piece of unfinished painting. "Auntie Xiu," it took a long time for Yun Wuxin to finally move her gaze away from the painting. "Did you draw this?" This was Kang Xiu's bedroom. Naturally, it could only be her work. She just couldn't quite believe it. "It is a leisurely work I painted some time ago." Kang Xiu turned to look at Yun Wuxin. "As you can see, though, it remains unfinished. If you like it, I can gift it to you after I've completed it. Just be sure to hang around until then." Really?" Yun Wuxin could barely say a word right now. To a person who had no interest in art, it was at best the artwork of a god emperor. To an interested person, though, even this incomplete painting was a treasure they wouldn't trade for all the gold in the world. "Thank you, Auntie Xiu. I will definitely cherish it." Yun-Chi was astonished. It was rare even for him to witness such a joyful Wuxin. It was to the point where he was feeling slightly jealous of Xiu. "I didn't know that you possessed such a skill." "HMPH, this is nothing. This is but one small facade of the young Miss talents." Ruyi interrupted before Kang Xiu could voice a reply. "The young Miss is equally peerless in calligraphy, engraving, Zhang Qin Di Zio 1, embroidery, and more. The guy who married her must have cultivated 10,000 years of good karma to be this lucky." "Ruyi," Kang Shu reprimanded. "You will speak gently in front of His Majesty, and you will not forget your manners." Ruyi turned away and pouted. It was obvious that she was dissatisfied about something. She also seemed used to addressing Kang Shu as young miss instead of the more appropriate God Emperor in a private setting. Kang Shu smiled. 10,000 years is a long time. When my boredom reaches an unbearable level, I will practice some hobbies to pass the time. They are unworthy of your Majesty's attention, though. Auntie Shu is that amazing. Yun Wuxin might have thought that Ruyi was exaggerating before she saw the painting, but now she couldn't help but believe the attendant. The painting really was that amazing. Of course, Ruyi replied immediately and with great pride. I have served the young miss my whole life. I know better than anyone just how amazing she is. If I have to praise only one of her skills, though, then it would definitely be her cooking skills. It is rumored that the best food in the entire southern divine region is the rippling heart jade soup of Pavilion of Delightful Dreams from the 7-star realm. HMPH, they say that only because they aren't blessed enough to taste the young miss delicacies. You can criticize that ripple heart jade whatever is crude, and it will still be an affront to my young miss dishes. Yun Qi raised his eyebrows slightly. He wasn't unfamiliar with the name rippling heart jade soup. Before the Great War against the Western Divine Region, Shui Meiyin had dragged him to 7-star realm on the pretense that she wanted to taste the so-called best food in the Southern Divine Region. It was none other than the rippling heart jade soup. However, they weren't able to sate their appetite that day, ironically, because of the Northern Army's mass relocation to the Southern Divine Region. The Pavilion of Delightful Dreams had skipped town all the way to the lower realm in fear of their lives. Earlier during the journey, Yun Qi had purposely visited 7-star realm again, because he expected the Pavilion of Delightful Dreams to have returned now that the situation had stabilized, and peace had returned to the Southern Divine Region. He was right. Both he and Yun Wuxin were able to enjoy the rippling heart jade soup Shui Meiyin thought so highly of. The outcome didn't disappoint him either. Not only did the delicacy deserve its fame and Shui Meiyin's strong recommendation, he would even say that it had surpassed his expectations. Naturally, Yun Wuxin also felt like her taste buds were about to explode from sheer pleasure. That was just a month ago. 1. As expected, Ruyi's claim was a shock to Yun Wuxin. She would criticize the so-called best food in the entire Southern Divine Region, the rippling heart jade soup, that completely flipped over her understanding of gourmet food as crude. Father took me to the Pavilion of Delightful Dreams to taste the rippling heart jade soup a month ago, Yun Wuxin spoke up and said. As far as I can tell, it really does deserve its fame. Is Auntie Shu's cooking even better than that? Ruyi's eyes and posture immediately softened. She clearly had a much better impression of the daughter than the father. After hearing of your arrival, my young miss set aside everything to prepare some snacks for you too. You may verify the truth by your own senses if you don't believe me, my lady. She walked to the tea table in front of Yun Wuxin and lifted the jade cover. Speaking of which, the jade cover was imbued with a thin layer of barrier on it to prevent the food's scent from leaking. There was a cup of tea, a plate of 3 slices of milk cake, and another plate of small biscuits. It was an incredibly simple yet elegant serving. Visually speaking, it seemed a little too simple for a big shot like Emperor Yun. However, Yun Qi's nose twitched before his eyes even caught sight of the food. Yun Qi was no tea lover, but the faint aroma that pervaded his senses, first the nose, then the heart itself, felt like it possessed some sort of unnamed magic. Not only was it indescribably refreshing and fragrant, the sweet scents that seemed to be in perfect harmony with each other caused his ears, eyes, mouth, nose, and subsequently his entire body to relax before he realized it. The pleasure and contentment from inhaling the aroma alone were difficult to describe. It was like being lifted up by a gentle, invisible cloud and cleansed by a spirit rain. Yun Qi realized then that Ruyi might not be exaggerating after all. It smells wonderful. Yun Qi was a hardened man, and he didn't make it a habit of displaying his emotions. Yun Wuxin, however, was nowhere as collected as he was. She let slip a thoughtless murmur before stumbling to the tea table as if she was pulled by an invisible, gentle hand. Please choose anything you like, my lady. You will understand what I mean then. Ruyi arranged the bamboo chopsticks for Yun Wuxin before awaiting her reaction. She also side-eyed Yun Qi when she thought he wasn't looking. Yun Wuxin's lips parted and closed unconsciously. She grabbed a pair of chopsticks, picked up a slice of milk cake with the utmost care, the incredible fragrance growing even thicker as the distance closed, and put it in her mouth. Then her movements came to a complete stop. For a time, she simply stood there and did nothing at all. Eventually, she removed the chopsticks from her lips and began chewing the food very carefully, but otherwise her expression and the rest of her body remained frozen. Even her eyes became glazed like her soul had been sucked out of her body. Yun Wuxin's strange reaction triggered a chuckle from Yun Qi. "Is it really that amazing? How is it? Does it suit your taste?" Kang Xiu asked gently. For a while, Yun Wuxin continued chewing almost as if she couldn't bear to spare the effort to speak. Finally, she whispered, "Give it a try, father. You'll understand why I'm like this." However, Ruyi looked away from Yun Qi immediately. She was unwilling to open the jade cover on his tea table for him. While this was going on, Yun Wuxin had grabbed her chopsticks again to pick up the second slice of milk cake, and Yun Qi consciously leaned backward and waved his hand repeatedly. I can do it myself." It was too late. The milk cake was merely centimeters away from his mouth. "Quickly, you will regret it if you don't eat this." He wouldn't care if this was a private gathering between friends and family, but neither Ruyi nor Kang Xiu fell into that category. They were his subjects, and Yun Qi wasn't so lackadaisical that he would forget his status and act like a slouch in front of them. However, his daughter didn't think that way, and truth be told, he could never keep up a majestic presence before his daughter anyway, especially not if it meant disappointing her. In the end, he opened his mouth and accepted the feeding. The milk cake passed through his lips and slipped into his mouth. For a moment, gentle fragrance assaulted his taste buds, and the next an impossible amount of pleasure and satisfaction spread across his entire body. His five senses lurched under the ultimate pleasure. His blood felt like it was singing in joy, and his soul grew light enough to dance to a tune. He had already tuned his expectation way up beforehand, but the food still managed to surpass it. It was only now that Yun Wuxin allowed herself to cry out in astonishment. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God! How can food possibly taste so good? It's so good I feel like I'm dreaming. How in the world did you do it, Auntie Xiu?" "I'm glad." Kang Xiu accepted Yun Wuxin's overflowing praise with a small but graceful smile. "Unfortunately, this is all I managed to prepare in the given time. If you would like, I can cook you my best pastries and dishes over the next couple days." "Amen." Yun Wuxin responded happily before picking up a biscuit next. Again, she let out a moan that would seem totally exaggerated if it wasn't actually that good. "What do you think, Your Majesty?" A hint of expectation and nervousness entered Kang Xiu's eyes. Clearly, she cared about Yun Qi's assessment more than Yun Wuxin's. "It's great." Yun Qi nodded slightly and expressionlessly. The impossibly tame reaction pissed Ruyi off so much she nearly crushed a tooth there and then. "Heartless man. Pretentious bastard." Ruyi didn't mean to curse him aloud, but she was so frustrated that she accidentally let them slip as a mutter. Yun Qi was the strongest profound practitioner in the primal chaos, and his spiritual perception was no exception. He narrowed his eyes slightly and continued. "As far as I can tell, this tea fragrance and pastry are truly second to none. They really are that good. However," his eyes abruptly turned as cold as ice, "it is equally clear that your attendant training skills are nowhere close to your culinary skills. Have you forgot to teach her the word death?" Heaven and earth quaked under Emperor Yun's fury, and even Yun Wuxin was caught off guard by her father's outburst. She stared at him in astonishment while holding the half-piece of biscuit she couldn't bear to swallow yet between her teeth. For the first time, Kang Xiu's seemingly eternally sweet features gave way to panic. She hurriedly rose to her feet and said, "Please quell your anger, Your Majesty. It is true that I have not disciplined Ruyi as much as I should because we share a sister's relationship. She definitely shouldn't have forgotten her place and offended Your Majesty." "Ruyi, apologize to His Majesty now." She blinked repeatedly at Ruyi as she rebuked her. She was terrified that Ruyi would allow her stubbornness to go to her head, and as it turned out, her fears weren't misplaced in the slightest. Yun Qi's aura was so oppressive that it chilled Ruyi's whole body and drove her half a step backward. However, she immediately gritted her teeth and squeezed out the words with almost fatalistic determination. "I will not." "Ruyi." Kang Xiu's voice grew an octave higher. Against all odds, Ruyi somehow managed to take one step toward Yun Qi before shouting at him. "Yun Qi, I don't care if you're the Devil Master or Emperor Yun. You irritate me and I hate you, understand?" Yun Qi. "H-U-U-U-U-U-H. Ruyi, have you gone ins? Miss, if I'm going to die anyway, you may as well let me finish what I have to say. If I don't get it out now and I somehow survive this, I'll still die from sheer frustration anyway." At this point, Ruyi was going for broke. She took another step forward and raised her voice. It has been more than a year since you forced the young miss to become the deep-sea god emperor and your so-called consort Grace. And yet you haven't visited the 10 Directions deep-sea realm or summoned her to the Emperor Yun City even once this whole time. Do you even know how many people in the southern divine region? No, the entire god realm are making fun of the young miss behind her back. Nearly all of them believe that she is just a tool you're using to control the southern divine region. Yun Qi's brow knitted. Yun Wuxin's eyes widened even further. She had gotten used to people groveling before her father with the utmost fear and respect, but this was the first time she saw anyone pointing a finger at her father's nose in a spitting fury. Ruyi, get out. Get out now. At this point, Kang Shu was experiencing a full-blown panic attack. She dashed up to her attendant and tried to push her out of the bedroom. However, Ruyi saw her coming a mile away and easily dodged out of the way. While doing so, she continued to shout angrily at Yun Qi. When you first showed up, I thought that young miss, eternally suffering, has finally come to an end. But no, you ignored her, humiliated her, and even used her like a tool. Even so, the young miss kept toiling with almost no breaks for the past year or so. She is the best person in the entire universe, and you, Emperor Yun, are nowhere close to even deserving of her. Yun Qi raised a hand and space itself froze in place. A killing intent sharp enough to penetrate the marrow cut off whatever it was Ruyi was trying to say. I see you're trying really hard to court death, Yun Qi said coolly. Your Majesty, no. No, Kang Shu rushed over and grabbed Yun Qi's raised arm in a death grip. Her eyes were full of pain and begging. What's so scary about death? Ruyi continued in a fatalistic tone despite Yun Qi's killing intent. You know as well as I how much lifespan the young miss has left. If she dies, I'm not living either. You think I am afraid to die? Yun Qi. I'll prove it with my death that not everyone will allow you to bully my young miss as you please, even if you're the so-called great emperor of the god realm. Ha! Yun Qi let out a faint sneer. You are surprisingly loyal for a brat, aren't? You're the brat. Ruyi cut him off angrily. You think I don't know that you're only 30-some years old? If we're looking purely at age and experience, you're not even old enough to be my bratty baby. Poo-wo. Yun Wuxin spat out the half-eaten biscuit she had been holding between her teeth. Nu-wu, what have I done? Yun Wuxin exclaimed in regret immediately after. Her heart was literally aching at the loss of the biscuit. She had never felt more wasteful than she did right now. The half-eaten biscuit wasn't the only one who had suffered. At least half of Yun Qi's killing intent had been extinguished by Yun Wuxin's spitting act as well. The young woman lifted the part of the dress that had been dirtied by the spit and said in a miserable voice, I'm so sorry for wasting your delicious snack, Auntie Shu. Suddenly, she perked up as if she remembered something. Auntie Ruyi, can you take me to the dressing room? Father told me that there exists a dress called the Illusory Water Sea Dress in the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm, and that it's the gift of the realm's infinite sea. I've been looking forward to seeing it for a very long time. Ruyi was prepared to die by Yun Qi's hands so that Kang Shu could finally give up on the loathsome man, but Yun Wuxin's interruption had disrupted her momentum completely. What are you waiting for, Ruyi? Take the princess to the dressing room already. Still clutching Yun Qi's wrist, Kang Shu urged again. Go! Come on! Yun Wuxin was already pulling Ruyi's sleeve and dragging her toward the exit already. And so Yun Wuxin half-dragged a confused Ruyi out of the door and finally vanished from Yun Qi's sight. Yun Qi's palm was still suspended in the air, but he didn't kill Ruyi. Kang Shu's nerves finally loosened up as she let out a long sigh of relief. She then bowed her head before Yun Qi and said, Thank you for showing mercy, Your Majesty. I promise I will discipline her more strictly from now on. If that is insufficient, I can order her to keep out of your sight as well. Expression unchanged, Yun Qi said slowly. On the day I met you for the first time, I was at the height of my infamy and inauspiciousness. The god emperors and even your own brother feared me to the soul. However, you barely reacted when we first met or when I was treating you. I couldn't sense any fear from you at all. Later on, I forced your body to adapt to the deep-sea divine power and put you through an unimaginable amount of pain. You could clearly feel your lifespan shortening to a flicker throughout the process as well. However, you remained as calm as a pool of dead water. He stared at Kang Shu's eyes before continuing. That is why I thought you to be a woman of extreme indifference. Until yesterday, I had believed that all but the smallest vestiges of your emotions had died with your 10,000 years of suffering. Kang Shu? But that wasn't the case. Your terror and panic were almost tangible when I expressed the intent to kill your attendant. He looked down at her chest. Even now, your heartbeat is still out of control. He had clearly made an error in judgment. Kang Xiu looked up. Is this why you've neglected me all this time, Your Majesty? Yun-Chi didn't answer her. Kang Xiu lowered her gaze before replying. It was a cold and painful 10,000 years. Without her constant companionship, I wouldn't have lasted long enough to meet Your Majesty. She may be my personal attendant in name, but we are really closer than blood-related sisters. One might even say that our bond has transcended common comprehension. I think I understand, Yun-Chi replied. You think I didn't notice she was glaring at me like she could swallow me the whole time? She really can't stand you suffering even the slightest bit of injustice. HMPH, Yun-Chi's words caused a faint ripple across Kang Xiu's eyes. You've forgiven her, Your Majesty? I am the great emperor of the god realm after all. Like I would lower myself to the level of a bra. He paused for a second before correcting himself. An old hag, Kang Xiu burst into a giggle. Oh, Your Majesty. The Empress or Consort Ice will leave you out to dry if they knew what you just said. Kang Xiu's smiling face was incredibly beautiful. It was as infectious as the autumn wind and clouds. In fact, Yun-Chi had regretted his words the second they escaped his lips. It wasn't his intention, but he had still offended Kai Weiao, Mu Xunian, and even Kang Xiu herself all in one go. That damned little attendant. She may have a screw loose, but I suppose it's a little petty to kill her for wanting to defend her mistress's honor to the death. There is no way that I'm letting her go without some punishment, however. Just you wait. I swear by my title I'll make you cry. Naturally, my empress and consorts do not belong to the same level as she. Yun-Chi paused for a moment before adding, By the way, you won't tell them what I said, will you? Kang Xiu neither nodded nor shook her head. Instead, she smiled like a deep spring of infinite wonders that could draw in one's eyes and thoughts until they drowned themselves in it. Your Majesty, do you know that the biggest mistake countless men have made in history is in believing that a woman will keep their secrets? Yun-Chi laughed in spite of himself. For the first time, he realized that basking in Kang Xiu's gaze and listening to her voice were a pleasure. Answer my question. Yun-Chi's tone changed suddenly, his eyes narrowing slightly into a compressed galaxy as he stared into Kang Xiu's eyes. Kang Xiu said softly, You want to know what kind of feelings I hold for you, Your Majesty? She had figured out his question before he even said it. He nodded, I wish to hear the truth. Instead of answering immediately, Kang Xiu slowly walked up to Yun-Chi. A waft of fragrance entered his nostrils as she did so, and knelt in front of him. She then placed her flawless hands on his knees. She was looking up when her eyes met Yun-Chi's once more. Your Majesty thought that I have lost so much that I no longer even understand what basic emotions are, much less the romantic love for another person. You thought you wouldn't be reciprocated even if you gave me your sincere love, so you chose to shower me with indifference. In fact, you believed that that would be the most ideal relationship for the both of us because we won't have to pretend when around each other. Am I right? Her deduction was spot on. Until today, he had believed that Kang Xiu was emotionally dead after everything she went through. Although she possessed excellent beauty and an indescribable charm that was unique to her alone, trying to nurture a love with her would be like unto preaching to deaf ears. He was the sovereign of the 4 divine regions and the man who conquered the Dragon Queen and the Lady Goddess. It wasn't like he was lacking in choice, so why would he force himself to love someone who had no interest in him? For 10,000 years, I was denied the sky because of a terrible illness and the threat of the Southern Sea. I admit that I may not realize how warped my emotions have become, and that my object of affection may be different compared to that of a normal person. I certainly hold a deep loathing toward men. However, her eyes grew slightly unfocused, and the sweet voice spilling out of her pink, cherry-like lips slowed down as if she was murmuring to herself. Whether you believe it or not, I knew you were my eternity from the moment I laid eyes on you, Your Majesty. Yun-Chi wasn't expecting this answer. Kang Xiu's eyes grew even more unfocused, and her voice more dreamlike. Do you know what the greatest, most terrifying weapon you possess is, Your Majesty? Yun-Chi's nose twitched unconsciously. He feared nothing and no one, and his skin was as thick as a fortress, but even he found it embarrassing to answer truthfully. One, in my opinion, it is not your invincible strength or peerless inheritances. It is your eyes. Yun-Chi's eyes narrowed a bit more. Huh! Ruiya's earlier actions may have been most disrespectful, but she was right about one thing. Kang Xiu smiled a little. You are only 30-some years old. To call you a young emperor does not even begin to describe how young you truly are. There were only two people in the entire history of the god realm who became a god emperor in their 30s. Xia Qingyu was the first, and Yun Qi the second. On the other hand, your majesty has led a peaceful life, fallen into the abyss, reigned at the top, saved the world from calamity, and even become the calamity that drowned it in blood. What most people experienced in tens of thousands of lifetimes doesn't even come close to what you experienced in mere decades. That is why the world reflected in your eyes also possesses the deepest, most terrifying, yet unique color I've ever seen. My cold, silent soul and my deep loathing and fear toward men should have made it incredibly difficult for me to fall in love with any man. But the moment I saw the color in your eyes, I could not help but be curious even though I know the danger. And I know that it may very well be a one-way trip. I want to look closer, touch it, explore it, fall into it, drown in it. Kang Xiu had lived 10,000 years with only the walls, the ceiling, the cold, and the solitude to keep her company. She would have broken down a long time ago if it wasn't for her brother and Ru Yi. On the other hand, Yun Qi's life was an unimaginable roller coaster of trials and tribulations, even though he had only lived for 30-some years. That was why Kang Xiu was attracted to Yun Qi more so than any other woman he had met in his life. In fact, Yun Qi vaguely remembered Kai Weiao saying something similar back in the northern divine region. It wasn't nearly as direct and honest as Kang Xiu's confession, though. Right now, he wanted nothing more than to grab a mirror and check whether his eyes really were as bewitching as his women claimed. Still staring into his eyes, Kang Xiu's voice grew even more dreamlike. If one day you meet a powerful woman whom you are unable to conquer, do not forget that your eyes are a greater weapon than your strength, your majesty. Yun Qi lightened his gaze before replying in a most serious tone. Come now. I'm sure my handsome face is even better than my eyes. Kang Xiu's eyebrows curled into crescents as she let out a cute giggle. If your majesty says so, then it must be true. Yun Qi looked down and gently held the flawless hands on his knees. The smooth, soft sensation of her skin immediately sent tingles into his heart. Tea, cooking, study, and music. A person only needs to pour themselves over one of these arts to be famous and proud for a lifetime, but these perfect hands have reached great heights in all of them. It couldn't have been easy, could it? Kang Xiu shook her head slightly. The past was bitter and dull. Immersing myself in the arts was the only way to make time go a little faster. Now, I am actually thankful that I have learned them all. Kang Xiu paused for a second before breaking into a smile. I have an idea. Would you like to learn how to cook, your majesty? Me, cook. It was one of the few words Yun Qi believed to have no connections to him whatsoever. He replied without hesitation, what a humorless joke. However, Kang Xiu continued, since ancient times, there is no art more desired than the art of profound cultivation. That being said, there are lesser mortal desires that are pursued almost as fervently. For example, there is the desire for influence, the desire for pleasurable sights, sound, touch, and more, all except the desire for food. To be more specific, most people believe that it sits at the bottom of worthy pursuits, and some even disdain it as a lowly art. However, the desire for food actually corresponds to two of the 6 sense organs of man, the nose and the mouth. No matter how much man may disdain it, it remains a fundamental part of their nature. If it is awakened by a powerful desire and honed by a strong and crafty will, it can stand as the equal of any mortal desire. What she said made a lot of sense, but Yun Qi remained completely uninterested. I'm just not interested in this art form. Plus, you are my imperial consort and a wonderful cook. Why would I need to learn the cooking arts when I already have you? Your praise delights me, your majesty, replied Kang Xiu softly. However, I can only stay by your side for a very short time. Yun Qi. Moreover, I believe that your majesty possesses the world's greatest talent in the art of cooking. It is why I find it difficult to see you waste your talent away. Me, most talented in the art of cooking. Yun Qi's mouth twitched imperceptibly. If that's true, how have I not noticed it all this time? Kang Xiu explained slowly. A tea leaf can produce 100 types of fragrance with the right type of cooking. In general, the culinary arts can be broken down into steaming, boiling, smoking, cooking, quick frying, stir-frying, stewing, pasting, baking, deep frying, dressing, casseroling, braising, roasting, marinating, and many, many more. If you know what you're doing, you can easily produce 1,000 unique and delicious flavors for 1,000 people. Recipes can be taught directly, and techniques can be trained eventually. However, the two most difficult and most important skills when it comes to cooking are 1. The selection and processing of the ingredients, and 2. Heat control. According to my knowledge, your majesty is extremely proficient in the medical arts and blessed by the wood spirits themselves. You probably know every plant there is in the universe, and are able to identify their quality and age based on their aura alone. Moreover, you are the master of the Sky Poison Pearl, and the ancient records claim that the Sky Poison Pearl possesses the greatest power of purification and refinement in the universe. Thanks to these advantages, your majesty can easily attain great heights most people, including me, can never hope to achieve. Yun-Chi. She was right, but the idea of using the Sky Poison Pearl for cooking was a little. He-Ling would do anything that he asked, so that wasn't a problem. The previous Sky Poison Pearl spirit, though, they might just pierce the veil of life and death to kill him if they ever learned about this. Kang Shu continued. As for heat control, well, if you claim to be the second greatest master of fire, who would dare claim to be the first? Yun-Chi was going to tell her Kang Shu that the very idea of cooking was incompatible with him, and that she should just forget about it completely. Then she said something that pierced right through his mental defenses. Wouldn't it be nice if your daughter and your family could enjoy the greatest food the world has to offer, food that you've prepared with your own hands? The rejection that was a second away from escaping his lips crawled back down his throat. Instead, it was replaced by deep desire. Yun Wuxin's earlier look of shock, joy, pleasure, and praise flashed across his mind. He couldn't deny feeling a pang of jealousy at the time. He looked down at his hands. It had been a while since he returned to the blue pole star, but he still felt deep regret and self-blame toward his daughter. A day hadn't gone by where he wasn't finding a way to make things up to his daughter and become a better father. Kang Shu was right. Learning the culinary arts could be the best thing to happen to his Wuxin, his wives, his family, and even himself. Moreover, Kang Shu had said that he could easily achieve what most people wouldn't be able to achieve in a lifetime, so it shouldn't be too difficult to learn right. The change in Yun-Chi's eyes put a beautiful smile on Kang Shu's face. So, would you like to give it a try, Your Majesty? You may yet find yourself in a whole new world that is more wonderful than you initially believed. Somehow, Yun Wuxin was able to draw out what should have been a quick change of clothes for a couple hours before finally returning to the bedroom. Following behind her was a deeply worried Ruyi. Obviously, she was regretting her actions after enough time had passed for her to cool her head. "I'm back, father." Yun Wuxin was practically sparkling with happiness when she said this. She had clearly had a great time. When she finally set her eyes on her father and Kang Shu, a surprised "eh" escaped her lips. Yun-Chi and Kang Shu were sitting side by side in front of a table with less than half a person's gap between them. That wasn't the most surprising thing, however. It was the change in her father's aura. Maybe it was because he was cautious toward all foreign objects, or maybe it was because of his dignity as the great emperor. But her father always covered himself in an invisible, all-isolating force field that prevented anyone's aura from mingling with his. They could spend a whole day exploring a bustling city, and he would smell like he was fresh out of a bath. The force field only disappeared when he was with her mom, and her aunties. Although she was far below a cultivation level, where she could even begin to understand the level her father was standing right now. She had noticed that her father hadn't put up the force field on purpose. It was just an instinct that came to him naturally after all his years of traveling. The force field had existed before she left the room. Now, though, it was completely gone. As a result, his and Kang Shu's auras were mingling seamlessly with each other. Her father wasn't the only one who had changed. Kang Shu's smile remained as graceful and beautiful as ever, but now there was an attractive radiance to it as well. "What kept you so long?" Yun-Chi asked. But it really was a pointless question because his spiritual perception hadn't left Yun Wuxin this whole time. He really was too overprotective of his daughter. "The clothes of the deep sea realm are so pretty that I couldn't help but try them all at least once. It would have been even better if Auntie Shu could have joined me." She would have shown off the illusory water sea dress she was wearing, but the change between Yun-Chi and Kang Shu's relationship caught her attention again. A few seconds later, she asked weakly, "Should I come back a bit later?" Yun-Chi saw through his daughter immediately. "Get over here already. You've had enough running around for the day." He could see that Yun Wuxin really liked Kang Shu even though today was their first meeting. "Ruyi, you can come in as well," Kang Shu called to her attendant softly. Further behind Yun Wuxin, Ruyi neither sensed Yun-Chi's gaze nor his killing intent. Combined with Kang Shu's summon, she finally mustered the courage to move her feet and step into the room very slowly. She still couldn't raise her head to look at the duo, though. Suddenly, Yun-Chi looked up and stabbed Ruyi with his gaze. You have one chance to apologize. Kneel. Ruyi bit her lips, but sensed Kang Shu's gentle gaze and Yun Wuxin's kind intentions. Not wanting to disappoint either of them, she ultimately bent her knees and bowed her head deeper. I have acted rudely and discourteously. I ask for a drop of Emperor Yun's vast forgiveness. This is supposed to be an apology, and yet I don't hear a single word of apology in your sentence. You don't believe you were wrong at all, do you? Yun Qi's gaze dropped a couple of degrees cooler. Ruyi continued biting her lips in silence. She neither denied the accusation nor begged for mercy. If you were going to apologize like this, you may as well not have said anything from the start. Yun Qi side-eyed her. You think you're completely in the right, and that your backbone is wholly in the right place, don't you? Let's look at one of your earlier claims, then. You claim that I have severely shortened Consort Grace's lifespan when I adjusted her compatibility with the deep-sea divine power. That is true, but how do you know that I cannot increase her lifespan? That one line made Ruyi, a woman who refused to submit even when Yun Qi's killing intent was pressing down on her, look up in utter shock. What did you say? Excitement, joy, and disbelief fleeted across her features in rapid succession. Can you really increase the young Miss' lifespan? HMPH. What would the world think of me if a consort of mine passed away long before her expected time? Yun Qi humphed coldly. You are a middle-stage divine master, and you dare judge my power with your shallow knowledge? Foolish. Ridiculous. His abuse was harsh. Ruyi couldn't muster even a shred of anger or humiliation toward Yun Qi right now. Tears flooded her eyes, and whatever defiance in her posture and words were completely gone. I have realized my mistakes. If your majesty truly can heal the young miss, I will submit to any punishment you desire. Did you just imply that I cannot punish you either way? Ridiculous, Yun Qi snapped. Ruyi stared dazedly at Yun Qi for a moment. She would never be able to forgive herself if her mistake caused Kang Shu to miss out on her only chance to regain her lifespan. Determination returning to her features once more, she declared, I was foolish, rude, and arrogant. I have committed an unforgivable mistake. I will accept any punishment without complaint if your majesty will quell your anger. Is that so? Yun Qi responded in a frigid voice. You have kept Consort Grace company for 10,000 years, and your transgression was done for her sake. Consort Grace will lose heart in me if I were to kill you, and you certainly aren't worth that. I have changed my mind regarding my plans in the 10 Directions Deep Sea realm. I will be extending my stay here, and I will be staying in this deep sea palace temporarily. If you so wish to atone for your crimes, he slowly pointed a finger at her, then you may begin by serving me in bed tonight. 1. Once again, one line had shattered whatever composure Ruyi had mustered, and turned it into utter shock. Yun Wuxin was trying to think up a way to help Ruyi when her father's unexpected request destroyed her concentration. Instead of being aghast at her father's behavior, though, a kind of strange excitement and expectation lit up inside her. Oh, father is showing that side of him again. Surprisingly, Kang Shu appeared to realize what was going on immediately. She smiled and shook her head a little. I cannot possibly, Ruyi could barely form a coherent word. She had clearly never faced such a situation before, and whatever quick-wittedness she displayed earlier had escaped her completely. This is an order, not a request. Your willingness matters not, only your obedience does, Yun Qi continued harshly. After she barely recovered herself, Ruyi made sure to avoid Kang Shu's eyes and shook her head strongly. I cannot. The young miss herself is not with you, so how can I possibly? Who was the one who said she would accept any punishment for her miss? In fact, this isn't a punishment at all. This is a favor bestowed upon you by your great emperor, but your first reaction is to fear and spurn it. This is your so-called atonement? Your loyalty to Consort Grace? Yun Qi's voice abruptly grew harsher. Ruyi could face down Yun Qi's killing intent without fear, but this? She was literally seconds away from bursting into tears. It had been more than a year since Kang Shu became Yun Qi's imperial consort, but she hadn't actually slept with him yet. If she were to sleep with Yun Qi before the young miss, how could she ever face her again? Your Majesty, this servant will accept any punishment, but not this. Please. She shook her head with all her might. Her eyes finally watered with fearful tears. Your Majesty, you can let her go for now, right? She has learned from her mistake, Kang Shu finally said. HMPH, she asked for this, Yun Qi replied, but the sight of Ruyi's tears was enough to convert all of his earlier irritation into pure satisfaction. Usually the fierier a woman, the deeper her weakness ran. In Ruyi's case, one metaphorical poke at Kang Shu was literally enough to make her cry. You may take your leave, Ruye. The attendant looked like she had just been pardoned from death when Kang Xiu said this. She hurriedly bade her goodbye before escaping from the bedroom. Yun Wuxin watched her fleeing back with deep sympathy. Ruye never dared to meet Kang Xiu's eyes until she was gone. The fierier a woman, the more a man will want to bully her. In this case, it looks like your majesty is not an exception to the rule either, Kang Xiu commented smilingly. She said bully, not punish. It put the situation in a rather interesting light. Her, Yun Qi said disdainfully, who can be fierier than Qianheng? Speaking of consort shadow, there is one thing I've been rather curious about for a while. Kang Xiu shot him a probing look. Who is the hunter and who is the hunted between you and consort shadow? Do you even need to ask? Of course it's. Yun Qi suddenly cut himself short as an uncertain look overcame his features. He actually didn't know the answer to that question. Kang Xiu didn't wait for Yun Qi's answer. Instead, she picked a small jade bowl from a table and turned to Yun Wuxin. Will you give this soup a taste, Wuxin? Yun Wuxin accepted it immediately and with barely suppressed excitement. She said, Did you make it just now, Auntie Xiu? Auntie Rui, you told me earlier that your soup is good enough to make a soul ascend to heaven. An elegant smile crossed Kang Xiu's lips as she replied, That may or may not be true, but you won't know until you taste it yourself, right? Take it slow. Yun Wuxin removed the cover and carried the bowl to her mouth without hesitation. Right before the soup was about to touch her lips, though, she abruptly noticed that her father was shooting her an unusually intense and nervous look. Her movement slowed for just a moment. Then she dipped the bowl and began drinking the soup. Yun Qi was going to ask her how it tasted, but he realized that Yun Wuxin wasn't done after the initial sip. She leaned back a little and slowly drank the whole bowl. For some reason, she didn't put down the bowl immediately after she was done drinking. It was like she was moving in slow motion. When she finally set the bowl down, there wasn't a single drop left inside of it. Yun Qi made sure to school his features and his gaze into a perfect mask of calmness before asking casually, How does it taste? Yun Wuxin pursed her lips thoughtfully. It's very tasty. There's just this strange taste that I can't quite put a word to yet. Strange taste? Yun Qi's eyebrows were literally trembling with tension. Can you describe it? Give me a moment. Yun Wuxin searched her mind seriously for a moment before breaking into a wide smile. I got it. Let's call it a father's taste. For a second, Yun Qi was lost for words. Then he broke into laughter and said, Ah, I knew it. The gap between my and consort Grace's culinary skills is too big after all. No, Kang Xiu said smilingly, to come this far in less than 5 or 6 hours of experimentation, you are already the most impressive man in the world, your majesty. Yun Wuxin kept smiling. There were so many things she wanted to say, but couldn't when she actually tried to. The soup had contained a father's taste, and her own faintly salty tears. She knew how much her father doted on her. She knew even better that he was constantly tormented by self-blame and regret. She had long since put down her resentment and anger toward him after learning everything that had happened to him during those darkest years. All that remained was a deep sorrow for him. However, her father still couldn't let go or forgive himself to this day. He was the universe's highest king, and yet he never stopped trying to make up to her and become a better father. I have not seen even one speck of the world yet, but if there is one thing I'm absolutely certain of, and it is that I'm already the luckiest and happiest daughter in the world, father. Eastern Divine Region, Brahma Monarch God Realm. A golden barrier parted as Xianxia Yingyue stepped out from behind it, golden hair swaying hypnotically to the swaying of her perfect body. Her beauty was that of an unholy combination between a terribly cold soul and a fantastical, practically impossible appearance. Even the light of heaven would dim in shame in her presence. A girl in yellow robes hurried up to her and bowed deeply. Welcome back from your seclusion, master. It was clear that Xianxia Yingyue had just finished her cultivation. The thin sheen of sweat clinging to her pale white skin looked as delicious as the essence of moonlight. It was to the point where the girl had to look away so that her heartbeat wouldn't run faster than it already was. A 2-month seclusion wasn't long by any means, but the progress she had made was acceptable. Although she was already a level 10 divine master, the blood of the heaven-smiting devil emperor ran in her veins. She was nowhere close to her ceiling yet, and when she did reach it, she was sure to exceed Qianheng Fanshan. Did anything big happen in the past 2 months, Yue Ying? Qianheng Yingyue asked. No, everything is peaceful and stable, Yue Ying replied. The Brahma Kings have chosen 6 extremely talented, profound practitioners who stand a good chance to inherit the Brahma Monarch divine power from the younglings. They are just waiting for you to confirm the selection. The old master's recovery has exceeded expectations. Last month, the old master himself said that his strength would return to its peak in just 1 or 2 years. However, he won't be healing back the 70% lifespan he lost. There is one more matter. 4 days ago, a group of rebels belonging to the remnants of the Holy Eve's realm tried to incite a rebellion to the west. They have all been captured and controlled. We were going to pass them over to the glazed light realm, but since you are here now, please dispose of them as you wish. Holy Eves, HMPH. This sect truly is rich in jokes and idiots, Qianheng sneered. Cripple them all and exile them to an uninhabited star realm. Ah, Yue Ying looked up in surprise. What? Do you object? No, of course not. Yue Ying hurriedly lowered her head again. Your slave servant hears and obeys. I will send the order right away. Yue Ying was Qianheng's personal attendant since when she was still the Brahma monarch goddess. In the past, forget people who rebelled against her, she would have killed even people who had become worthless to her without question. Naturally, she couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Yue Ying was about to take her leave when Qianheng suddenly called out to her. Wait, what are your orders, master? Yue Ying hurriedly turned back around. Where are Yunqi and Wuxin right now? Qianheng asked. This was the 4th month of their journey. Assuming that they hadn't altered their plans, they should be in the Western Divine Region right now. Yue Ying replied, Emperor Yun and the princess are in the Southern Divine Region, master. Southern Divine Region? Qianheng frowned a little. Why are they still there? Did something happen to them along the way? Yue Ying hurriedly clarified. Of course not. Emperor Yun is peerless and without equal. It's because his stay at the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm was longer than planned. He has been staying there for more than a month, and he still hasn't taken his leave yet. Qianheng frowned in puzzlement for a second. Then her golden eyebrows sank heavily. Could it be Kang Shu-He? Yes, master, Yue Ying answered with trepidation. According to our spies from the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm, Consort Grace has been sleeping with Emperor Yun for the past month. Crack. Yue Ying shut up. The sound of breaking teeth and the sudden drop in temperature were all the signals she needed. I knew it, Qianheng uttered furiously. I knew that woman was no normal woman. She was pissed at Kang Shu, but she was even more pissed at that waste of breath, Nan Wansheng. He called himself the #1 god emperor of the Southern Divine Region, and yet he couldn't even fuck one woman and decrease her number of competitors by 1. It was bad enough that she had lived long enough to steal her man, but she even managed to hold Yun Qi's attention for more than a month. She couldn't even imagine what kind of magic she had put on that horny bastard. In the past, the Qianheng that Yue Ying knew was a schemeful and selfish woman who did everything to become a powerful Brahma monarch god emperor. Today, Qianheng had achieved her dreams, but the only thing she thought and cared about was Yun Qi. In fact, she was often nowhere to be found when she was needed for something major. Of course, it was because she had run off to Yun Qi's. To say that the surviving Brahma kings were exasperated would be the understatement of the year. There is no need to be concerned, master. Yue Ying consoled her master carefully. Be it in terms of appearance or strength of relationship, that Consort Grace is in no way your superior. Emperor Yun is with her probably because she is a fresh face. Scram! Qianheng cut her off coldly. This is between me and that woman. Your opinions are unnecessary. I have transgressed. I shall take my leave now. Yue Ying hurriedly apologized before making a beeline for the exit. Wait, Qianheng called out to her again, but the anger in her voice hadn't vanished in the slightest. I want those Holy Eve's rebels killed, and their bodies fed to the profound beasts at Frost Brahma Ridge. Yes, master. A long time passed after that, but Qianheng was still fuming with jealousy. That dog, he's not leaving my place for at least 3 months. Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin were currently flying to the west on a small, profound ship that left behind a trail of dreamlike halos. In order for Yun Wuxin to adapt to the atmosphere of the god realm as soon as possible, Yun Qi had been carrying her across space by his own power. However, they were traveling to the Western Divine Region this time, so he borrowed a profound arc from Kang Shu for the trip. It would have taken ages to make it there otherwise. What was the item Auntie Shu snuck into your shirt when she bade us goodbye, father? Yun Wuxin asked curiously. It's nothing really, it's just a cookbook she personally wrote. Yun Qi complained after a pause. She could have just transmitted the knowledge to me via soul imprint. It would have been so much less troublesome. Yun Wuxin pursed her lips. I refuse to believe that you don't understand something this simple. Sigh, Qianheng exhaled quietly. Sometimes it really saddens me that my daughter is grown up. Wuxin simply stretched out her hand to Qianheng and said, like I care. Now show me. Fine, fine. Qianheng pushed his palm forward, and a book made of strange materials and glowing a light bluish color floated onto Wuxin's palm. Wuxin carefully opened the book. It only took an instant for her eyes to turn all sparkly and her lips to let slip heartfelt praise. So pretty, even her handwriting is a sight to behold. The handwriting was just the beginning. Qianheng might feign indifference, but he knew full well that every dish recorded in this book was the culmination of 10,000 years of experimentation, adjustment, and study. That these recipes never saw the light of day until now could only be described as a travesty. Qianheng's culinary skills had been improving by leaps and bounds for the past month, and the better he became, the more he came to realize just how precious the cookbook was. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the divine miracle of life of the culinary arts. Auntie Shu is pretty, a god emperor, and impossibly skilled in so many things. She's so perfect it's almost unrealistic. This wasn't the first time Wuxin had praised Kang Shu, and it wouldn't be the last. Wuxin reluctantly removed her gaze from Kang Shu's writing before looking at Qianheng. Father, I'm feeling more and more that you've monopolized the best women in the entire world. But of course, Qianheng held his head high. Who do you think your dad is? Oh right, do not praise your Auntie Shu in front of your Auntie Qianheng, okay? Why's that? Wuxin's mind clicked the second the question escaped her lips. So she gave her father a wink and answered. Oh, understood. Do not let her know about this cookbook either. Qianheng covered his forehead and said a little helplessly, otherwise she'll hound us until we show her the cookbook, and who knows what will happen afterward. I got it already. Qianheng hadn't tried to conceal their tracks, so he wasn't surprised to find the Qilin Emperor and an entourage of Qilins waiting for them. They rushed to welcome him the moment they saw him. Qi Tianli welcomes Emperor Yun and the little princess, said Qi Tianli before leading the salute. Then he looked at Wuxin and engraved her appearance and aura into his memory. I knew you would do this. Qianheng walked past the Qilin Emperor but didn't chase him away immediately. Instead, he said, tell me about the current happenings in the Western Divine region, but only the important ones. Yes, your majesty. Qi Tianli remained bending even as he trailed after Qianheng's footsteps. He began reporting in the most succinct way possible. The Empress has personally taken control of the Sin Dragon realm. The dragon god younglings have all been settled properly. The elements of unrest in the Kai Dragon realm and Myriad Manifestation realm have all been purged. The Hui Dragon realm has also completely fallen under the Blue Dra Consort Blue's control. The Qilin Emperor had to wipe away a forehead of cold sweat after that near mistake before continuing. The Enforcer Bureau under Qing Ryu's command has expanded its influence to 80% of the upper star realms, 60% of the middle star realms. Long Bai was dead, so Qi Tianli was now the God Emperor with the greatest seniority in the Western Divine region. His understanding of his divine region exceeded absolutely everyone else in the entire universe, and his work was even more comprehensive and rigorous. Qianheng listened to the entire report without uttering a single word. When it was over, he nodded and said, very well, you may leave. However, Qi Tianli didn't leave immediately. He bowed to Qianheng and said, Your Majesty, you have not concealed your tracks on your way over. This old one is afraid that someone may harass you out of admiration or worse, attempt an assassination out of sheer foolishness. Of course, no one can threaten your Majesty, but the little princess may be disturbed by it. If your Majesty doesn't mind, this old one can arrange someone to clear the path for you immediately. It's fine. Qianheng's expression didn't change in the slightest. The entire purpose of this trip is to show my daughter the many faces of the world. She has already witnessed those hilarious assassinations you speak a dozen of times, and frankly, I think she's grown bored of them. I see. So, if I may be so rude, will you be staying in the Blue Dragon realm? Qi Tianli asked carefully. He knew full well that Emperor Yun had stayed in the 10 Directions Deep Sea realm for an entire month and more before coming to the Western Divine region. However, Qianheng said, I was delayed at the Southern Divine region, so I'll be cutting my trip in the Western Divine region short. In fact, I won't be visiting the Blue Dragon realm. The Blue Dragon Emperor probably doesn't want to see me anyway. But the Qilin Emperor tried to give it one more go, but it was too late. Let's go, Wuxin. Qianheng grabbed Wuxin's wrist and left the Qilin Emperor far behind. A while later, the old Qilin let out a long sigh. She has to take the initiative, but, he muttered, That girl has never been good at taking initiatives, Sai. Where are we headed to now, father? Yunqi stared at the space in front of him. I think I would like to visit the Dragon God realm first. Yun Wuxin was going to ask another question, but she picked up a hint of grief in his voice and wisely kept silent. The former Dragon God realm, forbidden land of Samsara. The last time Yunqi was here, he had showered the place with light, profound energy. Therefore, the heavenly garden had regained its vitality. The grass was swaying, the flowers were blooming, the birds were singing, and the insects were chirping. But they would never return to that fairyland that was even more dreamlike than a dream. I've come to visit, Shenzai. Yunqi stood in front of the gravestone he personally erected and stared at it for a very long time. Yun Wuxin paid her respects before keeping her father company in silence. Back then, you said all kinds of things and used all sorts of methods to promote my growth. You wanted me to surpass Long Bai and everything else in this world. I've succeeded, but you are no longer here to see it. Worse still, I will never know why you treated me so well. Hugh, Yunqi exhaled long and deep before reciting. He a strange cloud meets a bright smoke, and saw the light she the first light of dawn chases away the wind of chaos and nurtures the strange cloud together they slumber atop a bed of flowers as one. It was a scene that would forever remain a memory. Yun Wuxin looked up. Is that a poem you made for Auntie Shenzai back then? Yunqi nodded. The strange cloud is me, the first light of dawn is her, and the bright smoke is the light, profound energy that existed in this garden because of her. I am still here, but she is gone forever. Yun Wuxin hesitated for a moment, but in the end she decided to ask her question anyway. I've never met Auntie Shenzai before, so I can only imagine your relationship with her in my head. But I think she would be angry if she knew of your poem. It's pretty frivolous, isn't it? You are right. Yunqi completely agreed with her daughter's deduction. She was the prettiest woman I have ever met in my life. She is even prettier than Qianheng and Weiao. I will never forget how stunned I was when I met her for the first time. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that would never happen again. Yun Wuxin's mouth parted in surprise. She couldn't imagine how pretty she must be to be prettier than even Yun Qianheng and Kai Weiao. No wonder the Dragon Monarch became obsessed with her for hundreds of thousands of years. During that time, I learned that she was the Dragon Queen of the Dragon Queen and Goddess, and that it was a false title Long Bai had applied for the entire world and himself because he couldn't obtain her. And yet, not only did that supposedly unattainable Shenzai fall for me, she was the one who took the initiative. I was incredibly puzzled back then. Of course, I was worried what Long Bai would do when he found out, but I'm even prouder and pleased with myself. Yunqi shook his head self-derisively. Over time, I grew less and less restrained because of her gentle nature, and I crafted this poem with every intention of showing off to her and teasing her. She didn't get angry with me, however. She gave me one of her rare smiles instead. That slightly dimpled smile was forever engraved on his heart as well. It had only been a decade since that day, but he really had acted like a bratty child back then. If only you were able to meet her, Wuxin, you would have believed that fairies truly exist in this world. Unfortunately, even the most perfect life is filled with helplessness and irreversible regrets. Yun Wuxin's eyes were full of yearning by the time he was done speaking. The Western Divine Region was the biggest divine region in the entire God realm, but Yunqi didn't linger in it for too long. 3 months later, he and Yun Wuxin had already left the Western Divine Region to travel east, but not because he wanted to travel to the Eastern Divine Region. Not yet. As per earlier planning, he dropped by the God realm of Absolute Beginning first. The God realm of Absolute Beginning was a gray world where ancient auras abounded. It had without a doubt opened up a whole new chapter of worlds in Yun Wuxin's heart. Yunqi told her about its history and its races as they ventured deeper into the place. There existed countless deadly ancient beasts in the God realm of Absolute Beginning, and not even divine masters would brave it without considerable preparation. Yunqi was basically the only person in the entire universe who possessed the might to escort a new divine way profound practitioner like Yun Wuxin through it. No one had ever found the edge of the God realm of Absolute Beginning. However, it did have a spot that was considered to be the heart of the world. After they were done visiting the dragons of Absolute Beginning, Yunqi took Yun Wuxin to that place. Legend says that the abyss of nothingness is the center of the God realm of Absolute Beginning. In its essence, it is an incredibly huge hole that returns everything that falls into it back to nothingness. It doesn't matter if it's living or dead. Even power, space, sound, and light itself will be nullified into nothing there. Therefore, you may watch it from afar, but you must not get close to it no matter what. Of course, he wouldn't let her even if she did, but a good warning was worth repeating again and again. As he said this, though, the image of a red figure falling into that same abyss flashed across his mind. It took him a head shake, and a bit of time before he barely managed to dispel it. "Not even you can approach it, father?" Yun Wuxin asked. "Of course," Yun Qi answered. "According to the records, when a true god dies, the energy leaking out of their body is powerful enough to trigger a supernatural calamity. That is why those sinful gods who committed unforgivable crimes were normally tossed into the abyss of nothingness and turned into nothing. The criminals wouldn't feel any pain, and their energy wouldn't harm the world. It was a win-win for everyone. If the abyss of nothingness can utterly annihilate even an ancient true god, why can't it annihilate me? It's that scary?" Yun Wuxin exclaimed in shock before another question sprang to her mind. "What is the power that's sustaining this abyss of nothingness then? If it can annihilate even a god with ease, then it has to be a power that far surpasses the level of a god, right?" Her understanding of power levels had also become more defined thanks to this journey. Yun Qi shook her head smilingly. "This is a question even an ancient true god will not be able to answer for you. The abyss of nothingness was left behind by the ancestral god herself when she created the world, so she is the only one who will know its true secret. Unfortunately, the ancestral god died a long time ago." Suddenly, Yun Qi paused in his tracks. "What's wrong, father?" Yun Wuxin paused as well to ask. "I wasn't expecting to meet two acquaintances here." Yun Qi smiled. "Come, I'll introduce you to a senior of great virtue, and a not-so-good-tempered little senior." The sword sovereign master and disciples' outlines appeared behind a pale mist as they approached the abyss of nothingness. They had been here for several years already. It was to temper Jun Zilei's heart of sword, and because this was the final resting place Jun Wuming had chosen for himself. "Long time no see, senior sword sovereign." Although Yun Qi had become the great emperor of the god realm, he still held deep respect toward Jun Wuming. Jun Wuming opened his long, shut eyes and gave Yun Qi a smile. To think that that astounding youngster from back then would become an unprecedented emperor of the primal chaos in but the blink of an eye. This old one truly has no regrets left in this world. Jun Wuming's eyes were perfectly cloudless. They possessed a kind of clarity that seemed capable of seeing through the many changes of the world. Yun Qi knew that it was his last rally before death. Beside Jun Wuming, Jun Zilei seemed completely caught off guard by Yun Qi's sudden arrival. Her gaze was darting unnaturally, and she refused to say a single word. "Snow Song disciple, God-conferred child, God-child Messiah, devil person, devil master, Emperor Yun." For some reason, his identity and fate were different every time she saw him. Meanwhile, Yun Wuxin was sneaking glances at Jun Zilei after she saluted Jun Wuming. What a beautiful older sister, I mean auntie. She looked like a beauty who had walked out of a traditional painting, and her bearing was just sublime. However, the way she's looking at father. Could it be? Is she yet another? "I would not have what I have today if you didn't save me back then, senior sword sovereign." Ever since he learned of some of the truths of that day from Huo Poyun's memories, Yun Qi's attitude toward Jun Wuming and Jun Zilei had changed completely. There were countless people who wanted to lick his boots after he became Emperor Yun, but only a handful who had helped him when he was an abhorred devil. If the former was as light as a feather, then the latter was a kindness as great as the heavens themselves. Jun Zilei's lips trembled a little. How did he learn about that? Yun Qi raised his palm and summoned the light profound energy. "Your lifespan is approaching its end, but with my light profound energy and some supplementary spirit medicine and profound pellets, I am certain that I could delay death's grip on you for at least another century, senior sword sovereign." Jun Wuming had lived for 50,000 years. He was dying not because of an injury or an unnatural depletion of life force, but because he was approaching the end of his natural life. That was why even Yun Qi could only do so much for him. Surprise appeared on Jun Wuming's features, but it quickly dissolved into an elegant smile that in no way suggested that he had any lingering attachments left to life. "I am very grateful for Emperor Yun's offer, but I saved you only to return the favor from back then. You do not need to return the gesture." He was referring to Yun Qi's saving of Jun Zilei during the profound God convention. Yun Qi replied seriously, "My favor done to you is but a speck of dust compared to your favor to me, senior. In fact, I am more obligated than ever before to repay the favors I am due precisely because I am now Emperor Yun. So please think of something, senior. It will cast a shadow on the rest of my life if I cannot repay this favor." Jun Wuming smiled gently for Yun Qi, for the God realm, and for his own disciple. "I am one of the handful of people in the entire world who managed to live 50,000 years as a mortal. It would be incredibly ungrateful and greedy of me to ask for more. Moreover, I was able to watch Layer grow to full maturity, and I was even able to witness a miracle, nay, multiple miracles that shattered the conventions of the universe itself. What else could this old one possibly ask for? Truly, you don't need to exert yourself or waste your precious spirit herbs and profound pellets on me. If you must repay me." His gaze grew warmer and his smile gentler. "Please take care of Layer after this old one have passed away from this world." There was a brief pause, and a surprised Jun Zile blurted, "I don't need him to. I will." Yun Qi nodded without hesitation and put Jun Wuming's final, greatest wish to rest. His reply had been so serious, decisive, and firm that Jun Zile was actually lost for words for a moment. In fact, Jun Zile had noticed long ago that her heart of sword would grow unsteady whenever she faced Yun Qi. Jun Wuming had brought her to the abyss of nothingness because it was where he had cultivated his heart of sword to perfection. A couple of years had passed since, and her heart of sword had become far stronger than before. So why was it still tethering on the brink of collapse at the mere sight of Yun Qi? "Good," a bit of cloudiness entered his aged eyes as Jun Wuming nodded. "Now this old one has shed even my last worry in this world. The world will weep at senior's passing, but I have full confidence that the name of the sword's sovereign and the light of the nameless sword will brighten it again in no time." Yun Qi shot Jun Zile's one last look before turning to leave with Yun Wuxin. Jun Zile leaned forward as if she wanted to say something, but in the end no words had escaped her lips. Suddenly, Yun Qi paused in his footsteps as if he just recalled something. He stretched out his palm and pushed an object sparkling a faint, crimson light to Jun Zile. "This stone is called the World Jade. One, it contains the divine power of the World Piercer," Yun Qi explained. "If a grave danger were to befall Fairy Jun in the future, simply activate it with your profound energy, and it will teleport you to Emperor Yun's city in 2 breaths. And yes, it works even if you are in the God realm of absolute beginning." The crimson stardust floated in front of Jun Zile. She hesitated for a few breaths, but ultimately held it in her palm. "Thank you for the gift," Jun Zile said in her usual cold, steely voice. "I shan't be impolite seeing as this is repayment for my master's favor." Yun Wuxin, "Oh, I knew it." Jun Zile flipped her palm over and deposited the World Jade in her portable space. Suddenly, Yun Qi vanished from his original spot and reappeared right in front of Jun Zile, hand stretching out like a claw. What are you doing?" Jun Zile instinctively curled backward at the unexpected action, but her sword auras never attacked Yun Qi. It was as if they had suddenly lost their own instincts. Then, she saw Yun Qi holding the red jadestone she just gave her. Somehow, he had extracted it from her own portable space. Jun Zile bit her lips, steadied her aura, and forced herself to calm down. Then she asked in a frigid voice, "What? Regretting it already?" She just finished saying this when a light breeze gently slipped around her waist. Then she realized that Yun Qi had attached the World Jade to the top of her sash. If the situation is critical, the short time taken to retrieve the World Jade from your portable space can prove to be fatal. That is why it's better to keep emergency items like this on your person, Yun Qi explained slowly while wearing a half-smirk on his face. "It's none of your business." While saying this, she suddenly realized that Yun Qi's face was just inches away from hers. The eyes that looked deeper than ever before were staring straight at her face. She felt a surge of heat rising to her cheeks as she took a panicked step away from him. She channeled her profound energy, but for some reason the annoying warmness on her face just wouldn't fade. "Ha ha 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 ha!" Even Jun Wuming was guffawing with incomprehensible delight. Yun Qi shot the duo one last smile before he finally took his leave, leaving behind a little sword sovereign whose heart of sword had crumbled completely. "I've finally figured you out, father." Yun Qi was navigating the edges of the abyss of nothingness with his daughter to give her a taste of its unique auras and laws when Yun Wuxin made the sudden comment. Which part of me have you figured out exactly?" Yun Qi asked. "Your way with women, of course," Yun Wuxin declared with extra emphasis. "Cough, cough, cough." Yun Qi nearly choked on his own spit. "You know when to be gentle, when to be passive, when to take the initiative, when to keep her hanging. You are way too good at this, father." Yun Wuxin lifted her nose and humphed. I thought the reason you kept rejecting Auntie Wyo's suggestion to expand your harem is because you're already satisfied with Mom, Master, and everyone else in your existing harem. But it wasn't the case at all. You were clearly teasing that little. Auntie earlier. Yun Qi let out a small sigh. He was feeling seriously conflicted right now. Truly, I'm both happy and sad that you are growing wiser and wiser. Eh? Yun Wuxin let out a cry of surprise before muttering to herself. He didn't even defend himself this time. What is there to defend? Yun Qi declared without any shame whatsoever. Just because I am already surrounded by gems doesn't mean I wouldn't want to acquire more gems. There are several ways to describe men like me. Passionate if you want it to sound good, possessive if you want to be honest, or true to one's nature if you wish to defend them. Yun Wuxin stuck out her tongue in secret. Maybe you should change your title to Heretic Emperor Yun instead. It takes a true heretic to be able to explain fickleness in so many ways. She was going to ask if Yun Qi wished for her to encounter a man like him in the future, but in the end, she didn't because she had a strong feeling that he wouldn't be able to answer. Yun Qi laughed heartily at her comment. Ha 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 ha, AWOO. The low yet terrifying sound had come out of nowhere. It felt like it had come from both the bottom of his heart and the impossibly distant space at the same time. Yun Qi's laughter stopped dead. He immediately spread out his spiritual perception in every direction. Yun Qi's abrupt change in expression and aura scared Yun Wuxin greatly. She hurriedly moved closer to her father and asked nervously, Father, is everything okay? Something's very wrong with that sound, Yun Qi replied seriously. Sound? What sound? Yun Wuxin looked around in confusion. Yun Qi frowned at her reply. You didn't hear that? I didn't hear anything at all. Yun Wuxin shook her head. Yun Qi didn't say anything after that. Instead, he focused on spreading his spiritual perception. However, his powerful soul still failed to detect anything. The sound was one thing, but what really worried him was the inexplicable yet powerful sense of uneasiness that suddenly occupied his heart. Now that he thought about it, the true reason he had made the almost impulsive decision to give Jun Zile a precious world jade was because of this uneasiness. It had appeared the moment he approached the abyss of nothingness. It just wasn't as strong as it was now. A long time later, Yun Qi still couldn't find anything. He even tried to probe the abyss of nothingness with his spiritual perception, but of course, all he felt was an impenetrable veil of nothingness. When Yun Qi finally withdrew spiritual perception and took a glance at Yun Wuxin, he realized that she was brimming with worry and terror. It was clear that his reaction had frightened her deeply. He hurriedly put on a smile and reassured her. It was nothing. I supposed I was just being overly sensitive after all. Extraordinary things often happen in the God realm of absolute beginning, and it's possible that what I heard was just an echo from ancient times. Phew, that really scared me. Yun Wuxin let out a sigh of relief. Discounting the time before her father became the great emperor of the God realm, she had never seen him make such a scary face until now. All right, time to go. He grabbed Yun Wuxin's hand and led her toward the exit of the God realm of absolute beginning at high speed. There are many more strange places we haven't visited yet, but I think it's about time we leave for the Eastern Divine region anyway. If we dilly-dally any longer, I bet someone will be joining us for the rest of our journey. Yun Wuxin's eyes twinkled a bit. So we're going to visit the Brahma monarch God realm first, right? Hee. Yun Qi let out a giggle. You're quite harsh on Auntie Qianheng sometimes, but you also spoil her a lot, father. Me? Spoil her? Yun Qi raised his voice unconsciously. No way. I'm just taking the necessary measures to keep her from heaping some unnecessary troubles on me. Yes, whatever you say, father. Yun Wuxin chimed while hiding a snicker. Just give it to a new wife. On the 9th month of their journey, they finally arrived in the Eastern Divine region. They were traveling to the Brahma monarch God realm when suddenly, Yun Qi changed directions midway. There's a place I wish to visit first, he had said with indecipherable eyes. They arrived at a dim space where the stars seemed unusually far away. It was almost as if they were trying to avoid this area. This is where the star realm called the Moon God realm used to be. Yun Qi explained to Yun Wuxin calmly. It was one of the 4 king realms of the Eastern Divine region. It was also the first king realm ever to be annihilated thoroughly and eternally. You still may have been able to find some remnants last year, but now, everything is completely gone. The eternal heaven realm, the southern sea realm, and the dragon god realm had all suffered varying degrees of destruction in the wake of Yun Qi's rise. However, they weren't utterly annihilated. They might never regain their former glory, but at least history would remember them as king realms once upon a time. The moon god realm, though, every trace of it had been wiped from existence. You wouldn't even know that there was a realm here if you had no idea what had happened. In a sense, it might as well not have existed in the first place. Yun Wuxin knew that her father was the one who had destroyed it. That he went to such lengths showed just how deep his hatred had run. "Father, you were never willing to even speak of the moon god emperor before to anyone, so why are you visiting this place now?" Yun Wuxin asked. Yun Qi replied, "Your Auntie Wyatt was very right about one thing. The more I avoid it, the worse it's going to get. I am now the great emperor of the god realm. I must always strive to be better and stronger, nor can I allow myself to be bogged down by the past anymore." He closed his eyes and softened his tone. "If I wish to overcome that fear and pain, then I must first try to accept them with a calm heart. I hope that one day I'll be able to face that name and not be affected by it anymore." He was already trying his best to overcome it, but he still wasn't able to say her name in the end. "Yuanba will come here one day," he continued. "To be honest, I still have no idea how I'm going to face him during our next meeting." Xia Yuanba had settled everything that needed to be settled in the Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and taken off to the God realm alone around the same time he and Yun Wuxin had begun their journey. He was full of passion and yearning at the time. By now, he should know the whole truth about the destruction of the Moon God realm and the death of the Moon God Emperor. "There's nothing to worry about, father," Yun Wuxin declared with full confidence. "Uncle Xia is an amazing person, and his bond with you is as deep as the sea. I'm sure he can't hate you after he learned the whole truth. At the very least, it won't end too terribly." "Yeah." Yun Qi opened his eyes and smiled. "Eastern Divine Region, Brahma Monarch God Realm. Of the 4 original king realms of the Eastern Divine Region, the Brahma Monarch Realm was the only surviving king realm with its power and realm intact. They had sustained great damage due to the Sky Poison Pearls poisoning and the attack of the Southern Sea Realm, but all that was in the past now. The foreign threats were finally gone, and they could now focus all their energy on recuperating their strength. The current Brahma Heaven God Emperor, the Brahma Monarch Goddess, was no longer the ambitious woman she used to be. In fact, her work motivation was entirely dependent on how well she and a certain great emperor were doing. In that sense, it was imperative that the Brahma Monarch realm ensured that their relationship went swimmingly, or else. When Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin finally arrived in the Brahma Monarch God realm, no one had appeared to receive them. It was like this even after they arrived at the Brahma Monarch capital. If they didn't know better, they would have believed that the Brahma Monarch realm was completely unaware of their arrival. It looks like Auntie Qianheng has no idea that we're coming." Yun Wuxin tried desperately to suppress her smile as she continued in an innocent tone. "It looks like you were wrong, father. Auntie Qianheng wasn't paying attention to your progress after all." "Ha!" Yun Qi snorted through his nose. "She is a sucker for punishment as usual. Let's go." After he had confirmed Qianheng Yinger's location, Yun Qi grabbed Yun Wuxin and left behind a sonic boom so loud that the people on the Brahma Monarch capital were crying out in surprise. A few breaths later, they landed in front of Qianheng Yinger's bedroom. The bedroom's barrier parted itself, and Qianheng Yinger walked out right as their feet hit the ground. Her golden hair was bundled loosely today, and she was wearing a light gold half-dress that exposed her smooth ankles, snow-like arms, and sweet-smelling shoulders. Her gaze was as indifferent as her expression was blank, but her countenance was still so beautiful that no painting in the world could ever hope to capture it. Where she trod, light itself dimmed as if ashamed to be in her presence. Yun Wuxin had met Qianheng Yinger plenty of times already, and even she couldn't help but be momentarily lost in her visage. No one even noticed the anxious-looking Yue Ying tottering behind her. "Oh, what an overwhelming surprise. I had thought that your majesty was too busy with work, politics, sex, and more sex to visit my little Brahma Monarch realm. You would almost think that I had committed a terrible mistake to warrant a visit from your majesty himself. Should I be worried?" Qianheng Yinger said in an indifferent and almost languid voice. Forget greeting Emperor Yun in a way that was befitting of his consort. She looked like she had just gotten out of bed and couldn't wait to get back to sleep. Yun Qi. Yun Wuxin had to bite her lower lip hard to push an involuntary giggle back down her throat. She sneaked a glance at her father before saying, "Long time no see, Auntie Qianheng. I know it doesn't look like it, but my father really misses you too. The first 2ND thing he did upon arriving in the Eastern Divine Region was to come over to meet you." "Miss," Qianheng lowered her pretty eyes and continued lazily. I am but the humblest and most ordinary woman of His Majesty many lovers. I do not know how to whisper sweet nothings into His Majesty's ears, nor do I know how to write, draw, play, or sing. I most definitely have not learned how to draw the soul out of a man's body. Well, it has been many years since the first time His Majesty has toyed with his consort. He must be all bored with me now. I shall be grateful if His Majesty doesn't throw me into the cold palace as a way to curry favor with his new toy, much less dream of winning his attention once more. Yun Wuxin was completely dumbstruck. Qianhenger's grievance was practically tangible enough to give Yun Qi a solid slap in the face. Yue Ying, Yun Qi suddenly spoke up, please escort the princess around the capital. Caught off guard but not fully out of sorts, Yue Ying hurriedly answered, yes, your majesty. But I want to stay with you a bit longer, Yun Wuxin objected immediately. How could she be absent when the show had just begun? Denied, Yun Qi replied without hesitation, knowing that there was no way she could change her father's mind. Yun Wuxin could only shoot him a grudge-filled stare before very reluctantly leaving the hall with Yue Ying. The second Yun Wuxin and Yue Ying were gone, Qianhenger's eyebrows immediately furrowed into a stormy expression. She grabbed Yun Qi's arm and dragged him into her bedroom before he could say a word. Bang! Both the bedroom door and the barrier slammed shut at the same time. Was Qianxiu fun? Qianhenger uttered fiercely while half-pressing Yun Qi against the wall. Yun Qi's gaze sharpened. He rotated out of her grip and pushed her to the wall instead. Does your impudence know no bounds, woman? Qianhenger struggled mightily, but she wasn't able to break out of his grip. Undeterred, she detonated her profound energy to slam him away before pressing him to the wall once more. So what? What are you going to do about it? Rumble Yun Wuxin and Yue Ying hadn't even left the hallway for a minute when a loud bang resounded from the bedroom. There was so much force behind the blow that the ground beneath their feet was literally shaking. Yue Ying looked back in shock and blurted, "WH, what just happened?" Yun Wuxin replied calmly, "Don't you worry, they're always like this when they're alone. If anything, you should worry when they aren't loud." Yue Ying. Although Qianhenger was now a level 10 divine master, she was ultimately no match for Emperor Yun, especially because her core cultivation, dark, profound energy, was completely suppressed by him. Naturally, Emperor Yun won the Great War and had Qianhenger nailed firmly to the couch. Despite her defeat, Qianhenger's eyes remained as vicious as ever. What did Qianxiu do to steal your soul for 36 days and 18 hours straight? Speak, it's useless, Yun Qi said evenly. You won't be able to copy her even if you try. Why was she so hostile toward Qianxiu anyway? Was it because she felt threatened by her just like she had felt threatened by Kai Wao? HMPH? Qianhenger narrowed her eyes dangerously. Looks like your majesty is hungering for something simpler after all the luxury food he's tasted. But aren't you worried that you might catch some of that slutty fox's musk? Yun Qi snorted. Is there any woman in the world you don't think is slutty? Am I wrong? Qianhenger pursed her lips sexily while caressing his ribs with her legs slowly. The so-called untouchable maiden Shenzai, the seemingly unfeeling Mu Xunian, and now the innocent as a babe Qianxiu. They all look holier than thou on the surface, but they're really. I got it already, Yun Qi's gaze turned odd all of a sudden. It was because he smelled something from Qianhenger's nearing breath. The pearl jade heart-forming soup, Yun Qi blurted. For the first time, Qianhenger's golden pupils trembled with shock. A bit of panic even crept onto her features. She turned both her gaze and her lips away from him. Pearl jade, what soup? I don't know what you're talking about. No wonder. I was wondering why you sought out Linger in person that time. It wasn't like you at all. Yun Qi's gaze turned playful, and he intentionally dragged out some of his words. It's too bad this stuff doesn't work on me, though. If it did, Linger would have become a mother a long time ago. You dog! Qianhenger blushed harder than she ever had before in her life. When that embarrassment turned into defensive anger, she pinched Yun Qi's waist and gave it a hard twist. Shut up if you can't say anything nice. Then she bit Yun Qi hard on the lips. 1 month passed, and Emperor Yun was still residing in the Brahma monarch god realm. 2 months passed, and Emperor Yun still wasn't able to take a single step out of the realm. In the 3rd month, oh well, it's been 73 days. In terms of day count, I've completely obliterated that deep-sea woman. I shan't delay your majesty and the princess journey any longer. If Qianhenger was overflowing with grievances on their first meeting, then she was as satisfied as a cat after a full meal now. She should know now that her foxy ways are no match for me. Yun Qi rolled his eyes at her. Not everyone is like you, you know. The thought of competing against you never crossed her mind. He then stretched out his hand to her and said, "Now give me that item left behind by the heretic god already. And it better be the real thing or else." This was the real reason he hadn't managed to leave Xianxia Ying'er's side. Or else what? Xianxia Ying'er suddenly looked at him with seductive eyes. Not only was she not afraid, her golden eyes were practically shining with expectation. "Give it already," Yuan-Chi repeated exasperatedly. The woman was really becoming more and more impudent and exasperating every day. Very satisfied with Yuan-Chi's expression, Xianxia Ying'er finally stopped delaying and stretched out her hand. There was a flash of profound light, and a block-shaped slab about 1 meter wide and made of some strange material appeared on her hand. The slab was perfectly flat and patternless. It didn't give off any aura either, however. Yuan-Chi's heart skipped a beat the moment he set his eyes on it. "Where did you get this?" Yuan-Chi asked seriously while staring at the slab. Xianxia Ying'er answered, "Over 20 years ago, I tempted the heavenly slaughter star god to the southern sea god realm with the forgotten lands of the heretic god as the lure. And I tempted the southern sea to gang up on her. What did you think I was doing during this time?" Yuan-Chi thought for a moment before answering. "You slipped into the forgotten lands of the heretic god while their attention was placed on each other." "Of course." Xianxia Ying'er's eyebrows relaxed slightly. "Unfortunately, the heavenly slaughter star god actually found the heretic god's inheritance before me, so all I got from the place was this slab." At the time, over half of the ruins had been destroyed by the battle between the southern sea and the heavenly slaughter star god, but this slab was completely unharmed despite sitting at the center of the destruction. I've also never seen its material before, so I took it back and tried to research it to no avail. After that, I left it in Qianheng Fanchun's hands. Qianheng Fanchun couldn't find any use for it either, so it was eventually set aside and became forgotten over time. It was just a patternless slab after all. I only found and recalled this while I was searching through Qianheng Fanchun's belongings a couple months ago. She then pushed the light gray-colored slab to Yuan-Chi and said, "You are the heretic god's successor, so it might be useful to you. Even if that isn't the case, it's still something from the forgotten lands of the heretic god, a memento of the ancient times. Who knows, it might be the heretic god's buttwarmer." That's right, the so-called heretic god's item she had used to delay Yuan-Chi for over 2 months was just a patternless, useless slab she had carelessly nabbed from the forgotten lands of the heretic god back then. She thought Yuan-Chi would erupt in anger after knowing that she had tricked him after all. But she quickly noticed that he was still staring at the slab with a look of deep seriousness and concentration on his face. "You actually found something?" Qianheng Ying'er turned serious as well. Yuan-Chi said nothing. He stretched out his palm and wreathed it in flames, but after hesitating for a moment, he dispelled it and left behind only the purest heretic god profound energy. Then he touched the slab. Chiang! There was a soft resonance, and the dim slab suddenly glowed a little. Yuan-Chi felt an invisible energy guiding his external profound energy and spreading it across the slab. The energy turned into patterns, and the patterns turned into rows and rows of distinct script. "This is..." Qianheng Ying'er exclaimed in surprise. She didn't imagine that the seemingly inert slab she had neglected up until now would actually react to Yuan-Chi. The fact that the slab only manifested words when the heretic god's profound energy made contact with it proved that it was engraved by the heretic god himself. It wasn't even written in some foreign or incredibly old script like the divine text of absolute beginning. It was written in the common language. Yuan-Chi held his breath as he read the message left behind by the ancient heretic god. "The myriad tribulations burns my soul, and I will soon cease to be. Thankfully, with my remaining life as the medium, I was able to condense my origin power into a drop of indestructible blood. Person of the future, know that from the moment you inherit my power, you and only you will be charged with the great mission of protecting the world from a great calamity. It is up to the heavens to decide if you will succeed or fail." If Yuan-Chi had obtained this slab when he first inherited the heretic god's divine power, he would never have been able to imagine the kind of calamity the heretic god was speaking of, or the heavy and complicated emotions he must have borne at the time of writing this. If he were to look at the result alone, he supposed that he had succeeded in accomplishing the mission the heretic god had charged him with. The heaven-smiting devil emperor had left, and the devil gods were prevented from returning to the primal chaos. However, he knew that the one who truly saved the world wasn't him, but the heaven-smiting devil emperor. The elemental cores have been scattered across the universe. It is up to your fate, your determination, and your conviction to reunite them, future heretic god. My secrets, my care, and the wish my wife and I were ultimately unable to fulfill, how much of the truth will you uncover, future heretic god? Again, it is up to you to protect, do nothing, or reject them. It wasn't a long paragraph, but it still left Xianxia feeling a myriad of emotions. He had found out all of the heretic god's secrets. He had found both of the heretic god's cares, bound them to his life, and protected them as well. As for the heretic god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor's unfulfilled wish, the dream that God and devil would one day be able to live together in harmony. He couldn't say if uniting the 4 divine regions and urging its denizens to abandon their prejudices counted toward it. I shall put 7 seals on the heretic god art both to bind and protect you. If you break the seals by force while your strength is still insufficient, you will damage yourself. There will never be another true god in the future. The Hell Monarch realm will be the absolute limit a mortal can endure. Unlocking the 6th and 7th realm will only destroy you, so I have made the 6th and 7th seals to last for eternity. However, the heaven-smiting devil emperor had removed those seals. My heretic god art was derived from a taboo art. Therefore, it is a taboo power that does not belong among the heavenly laws, and it is incomparable to the profound arts of the mortal world. If you are able to collect all of the elemental cores, you will attain the realm known as Divine Master by mortals. You are not yet in the realm of a god, but you will be able to unleash the power of one. There are gods and devils no longer, and the old order of the universe has crumbled. However, the loss of divine aura has slowed, and the new order is trending towards stability. If a new god is to be born in this world, it will surely strain the new order and harm the mortals. If you are an evil person, then it will surely be a calamity unto all. Therefore, I have sunk the earth core into the abyss to eliminate the potential danger once and for all. You who inherited my divine power need not obsess over it. That was the end of the heretic god's final words. When Xianxia withdrew his hand and his profound energy from the slab, the words disappeared like they were never there. I have sunk the earth core into the abyss, Xianxia Ying'er muttered before knitting her brows abruptly. The abyss of nothingness? To sink anything into the abyss of nothingness was to return it to nothingness. This meant that Xianxia would never find the heretic god's earth seed, and that the current universe would never see the heretic god's earth powers. I see. Xianxia felt a bit disappointed knowing that the heretic god's earth seed was forever lost to the world, but he recovered from it in no time. You don't seem too surprised? Xianxia Ying'er shot Xianxia a glance. Xianxia replied, thanks to the heretic god profound veins, I've never encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation, be it during the 9 mortal realms or the 7 divine realms. As long as I've accumulated enough power, I could easily break to the next realm. However, before the final battle against the Western Divine Region, during the few years Meiyin and I were cultivating inside the eternal Heaven Divine Realm, I was unable to achieve a breakthrough no matter what despite having reached the peak of Divine Sovereign Realm. In that moment, I had a feeling that the heretic god had probably set up some sort of special restrictions that prevented his inheritor from ever advancing into the Divine Master Realm, for the same reason just as he had set up the 6th and 7th gates. As it turns out, my guess wasn't too far from the truth. So, the reason he set up these restrictions is to prevent a power that exceeds the world's limits from appearing and triggering the collapse of the mortal order. Xianxia Ying'er snorted a little, as if she was dissatisfied with the heretic god's decision. He really should have named himself the Holy God instead. Xianxia rolled his eyes at her. Nearly everything the heretic god did during his remaining life was to protect the future generations. Without him, forget the peace we're enjoying right now, the primal chaos itself may have ceased to exist already. That Xianxia Ying'er couldn't deny, especially since she knew everything now. The loss of divine aura has slowed, repeated one of the lines on the slab before humming to himself. It looks like the primal chaos was still losing vast amounts of spirit energy long after the gods and devils had perished under myriad tribulations. It wasn't until the heretic god was about to perish that it finally slowed to a stop. The new law and order of the primal chaos became stable as a result, but the extinction of the gods and devils and the loss of all that spirit energy severely lowered the level of this new world and weakened it considerably. Therefore, a true god can no longer be born in this new world. However, the heretic god knew exactly how taboo and powerful the devil god Forbidden Tome, he, and the heaven-smiting devil emperor created together was. If it was cultivated to completion, even a mortal may manifest the realm and power of a god. For a god to appear in this godless, fragile world may very well strain the new law and order to their limits. It may even trigger a collapse. The calamities that happened across all realms before and after the heaven-smiting devil emperor returned. The massive earthquake that shook over half of the northern divine region after he activated God Ash by force at the burning moon god realm, and the terrifying phenomena that took place while the southern sea god realm was firing the titanic sea god cannon. They all supported the heretic god's theory. It was out of this consideration that the heretic god removed one of his seeds permanently. It was a comment made out of deep respect and admiration, not regret. The earth seed was a power that had accompanied the heretic god his whole life. He would rather his powers be forever incomplete than to leave behind the possibility of a world-ending crisis. Yun-Chi looked at his palms and said, "It looks like I'll never become a divine master. That's fine, though. At least now I know that there's no point looking for the last heretic god seed anymore." One, it was a shame that he would never be more than peak divine sovereign, but he was already unrivaled in the entire universe due to the heretic god's divine power. It wasn't necessary to get to the divine master realm. "I have 2 questions, Qianheng Yinger said suddenly. First question, where did all the spirit energy go? It can't possibly have seeped out of the primal chaos through the wall, right?" Yun-Chi didn't give her a reply. The same question had puzzled the heaven-smiting devil emperor, and he wasn't expecting to find the answer anytime soon. Second question, you said that loss of spirit energy has slowed to a stop, but has it really? Qianheng Yinger narrowed her eyes. "The northern divine region is still shrinking to this day, you know." "Who knows?" Yun-Chi replied seemingly casually. However, what flashed through his mind was that strange, indescribable and untraceable feeling he felt every time he entered or exited the god realm of absolute beginning. After Yun-Chi and Yun-Wuxin left the Brahma monarch god realm, they were finally able to explore the eastern divine region properly. They went to the raised eternal heaven god realm, the broken star god realm, Shui Meiyin's glazed light realm, the half-desert world that was the shrouding sky realm, the Darkia realm where he met Keijai for the first time. As they continued northward, they came closer and closer to the Snow Song realm. However, instead of taking Yun-Wuxin to the Snow Song realm when they arrived in the northern space of the eastern divine region, Yun-Chi made way for the neighboring flame god realm instead. Yun-Wuxin's main profound art was the world ode of the phoenix, so of course he wanted her to visit the star realm that bore its inheritance. He especially wanted her to visit the ancient god-burying inferno prison where the phoenix's remnant spirit used to reside. Yun-Wuxin let out a long cry of astonishment when the ancient god-burying inferno prison that stretched for hundreds of thousands of kilometers finally entered her sight. Yun-Chi himself became lost in thoughts for a very long time. This place was very meaningful to him because it was where his relationship with Mu Xuanian, Kai Weiao, had changed fundamentally. Every time he recalled that memory, he would laugh at his younger self and especially reflect upon those fantastical moments. "Father, you're wearing a very..." It took Yun-Wuxin a while to find the gentlest word she could think of. "Strange smile on your face." "Ahem." Yun-Chi hurriedly schooled his face into a serious expression before saying, "I was recalling that time I rescued your Auntie Xuanian when I was just a divine origin profound practitioner. You might say that that was my first great act after I stepped into the divine way." Yun-Wuxin was highly doubtful that was the case considering the absolutely vulgar smile he was wearing a moment ago, but she let it go and said, "Is that how Auntie Xuanian came to fall in love with you?" "But of course," Yun-Chi declared with his head held high. "Or at least I think so." Suddenly he noticed something and turned his gaze. While concealing his and Yun-Wuxin's presence with the hidden flowing lightning too, Yun-Chi carried Yun-Wuxin to the west and said, "Let's go visit an old friend." To the west of the ancient god-burying inferno prison where a huge crimson barrier lay. All 3 flame god sect masters, Yan Wangkeng, Yan Juhai, and Hu Ruli, were present, and standing in front of them was none other than the flame god realm king, Hu Poyan himself. Something very important must be happening for the 4 most important persons in the flame god realm to gather here. As Hu Poyan approached the fiery barrier, it seemed to react to his presence and grew increasingly unstable. An inferno of unbridled fury, this was a barrier forged from the Golden Crow divine flames. "My apologies, but please handle all the happenings of the flame god realm while I'm gone." Hu Poyun stretched out his hand toward the barrier after saying this. Great Realm King, please think this over, Yan Wangkeng beseeched in a painful but helpless tone. Clearly, they had already tried to dissuade Hu Poyun countless times to no avail. Great Realm King, we neither wield the power nor the ability to stop you, but can you please delay your decision for another 3 months? Yan Zhuhai was begging at this point. If your determination remains firm after 3 months, then we will not stop you any longer. I appreciate your persuasion attempts. Hu Poyun's long hair danced erratically to the hot wind. Unlike the 3 dejected sect masters, his expression was calm and determined. But I have already made up my mind. His palm finally touched the barrier. In the sky, Yun Qi watched the scene in puzzlement. What was Hu Poyun doing? 1. Wanna bet that it's used to grow a new earth seed to unlock his final powers. 2. Poyun, Hu Ruli's sudden, angry roar froze Hu Poyun before he could do anything else, and shocked both Yan Wangkeng and Yan Zhuhai. The 2 sect masters were shocked because he had addressed Poyun by his name, not his title Great Realm King. Right now, Hu Ruli's complexion looked as red as blood, and it was difficult to tell if his fiery long hair was shuddering because of his anger or the hot air of the environment. One thing was certain, though. Those who paid close attention would realize that some of his hair was starting to gray. How much longer are you going to be willful and stupid? His voice sounded hoarse because he was shouting every word. He seemed to have forgotten that the man before him was no longer his disciple, but the Flame God Realm King all denizens of the Flame God Realm must submit to. Sect Master Huo, Yan Wangkeng and Yan Zhuhai warned at the same time. Shut up! Hu Ruli waved his arm imperiously before walking forward until he was within touching distance of Hu Poyun. Poyun, you have always been the greatest pride of my life. In a sense, I see you as a gift from heaven itself. You may be my disciple, but you're just as important to me as Yer. Do you remember that day you came out of the eternal heaven-divine realm as a divine master, and I laughed like a madman in front of you? You probably do, but you have no idea I cried for 3 days and nights when I was alone. Do you? I even boasted to countless people's faces saying that I could pass on to the afterlife now with 0 regrets. Huo Poyun still didn't move a muscle. Because of you, the Flame God realm was able to become an upper star realm. Every one of us is proud of you, and we all look up to you as our king from the bottom of our hearts. But look at what you've become after Yun Qi came back. Look at what you've done and are still doing right now. Where is your pride as the successor of the Golden Crow? Or have you fed it all to your pathetic ego? Have you forgotten that your every word and action may decide the fate of the entire Flame God realm? It's not even the first time you have threatened to bury the Flame God realm with your foolishness. And now you're going to do it again. Sect Master Huo, Yang Wangkeng boomed, finally overcoming Hu Ruli's full-throated shout with a fiery shout of his own. He let out a heavy sigh before saying, enough, no matter what happens. He is still our Great Realm King. Great Realm King, you say? Hu Ruli let out a bitter laugh. No, he is just my failure. Surrendering control of the Flame God realm to him was the biggest mistake of my life, not my proudest moment. The only reason the Flame God realm is even standing right now is because Emperor Yun still values our former friendship, or maybe. We are simply beneath his attention now. Both Yang Wangkeng and Yan Zhuhai closed their eyes at the same time. Their expressions were of pain and grim acceptance. Pain, because Hu Ruli had finally divulged every thought he had kept locked in his heart. Grim acceptance, because speaking the truth was often not without its consequences. Hu Poyun lowered his arm slowly. Then, he turned around to face the sect masters. To their surprise, the eyes that met them weren't filled with rage, but a calm that was almost unfamiliar to them. Master, Sect Master Yan, Chinese letter, Sect Master Yan, Chinese letter. He said slowly and softly, this unworthy junior and incompetent realm king is aware that he has disappointed you all these years. His tone and expression were so different from what they expected that even the raging Hu Ruli was temporarily lost for words. Poyun, you, even the most immature child, must grow up someday. Hu Poyun smiled derisively at himself. And I have long since lost the right or the face to keep acting childish. I should have put down my pitiful obsession toward Yun Qi, no. Emperor Yun a long time ago. Hu Poyun's declaration shook all 3 sect masters greatly. Yan Wangkeng blurted with cautious hope, Great Realm King. Do you really mean it? Amen. Hu Poyun nodded with a small smile on his face. After I have cultivated 9 sons Heaven's fury to completion, the progress of my Golden Crow's record of the burning world has slowed to a crawl. That is why I'm entering this forbidden barrier. It is to witness the 9 heavens cry of dead crow and shattered jade. I am well aware that it's a forbidden flame that burns the world at the cost of oneself, but it's ultimately a part of the Golden Crow's record of the burning world and the Golden Crow's divine power. If I don't cultivate it, then my Golden Crow's record of the burning world will never be complete. As the successor of the Golden Crow's power and will, that is simply unacceptable. 9 heavens cry of dead crow and shattered jade? Xianxia frowned. The Golden Crow's record of the burning world he first cultivated had come from the Golden Crow's remnant spirit that resided in Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley of the illusory demon realm. Later on, Shui Meiyin made a bet with the Flame God realm and won him the complete version of the Golden Crow's record of the burning world. However, not only was there no 9 heavens cry of dead crow and shattered jade in the complete version of the Golden Crow's record of the burning world, he had never even heard about it until now. Moreover, the name of the profound skill clearly hinted that it was the product of tragic determination and grim acceptance. It is most assuredly not to prove anything to Emperor Yun. Both the smile and self-derision on Xiu Poyun's face grew at the same time. If there comes a time where I am forced to use this skill, it will only be for the Flame God realm. So there is nothing to worry about, Master Sect Masters. The twisted and chaotic flames of anger that had been rising from Hu Ruli's body faded away. For a long time, he could only stare at his former disciple with trembling lips, unable to muster a single word. Good, good, Yan Wangkang said with a deep nod. Even his eyes had welled up with a bit of tears. All 3 of us have always believed that you wouldn't disappoint us forever. But it is a fact that my earlier, foolish mistakes have put our realm in grave danger. If one day Emperor Yun were to lay down his judgment, I will kowtow before him and atone for my actions. I won't allow my emotions to affect my decisions anymore. I will even cripple myself if that is the price I must pay to protect the Flame God realm. But, he shook his head smilingly, and before continuing in an even tone, it is probably as Master said earlier. Right now, Emperor Yun stands so high that he may find it beneath him to even look down on me. Poyun, I am so glad that you have regained yourself. Hu Ruli finally found his words, but his lips remained trembling uncontrollably. My earlier outbursts, they were made in a fit of thoughtless anger. I want you to know that you are still and will always be my greatest pride. I know, Master, and there is nothing to apologize about. Your criticisms were completely correct. Hu Poyun looked at his master and said sincerely, when I have finished cultivating the 9 heavens cry of dead crow and shattered jade, and I have returned to you, I hope that my progress will make you laugh just as happily as you did back then. Xianxia stopped watching then. Instead of investigating the so-called 9 heavens cry of dead crow and shattered jade, he turned away from the scene and said, Let's go, Wuxin. Xianxia sped up after they got far enough away from the barrier. They quickly exited the ancient god-burying inferno prison. Unlike his usual self, he didn't say a single word during this time. Father, you don't seem well. Yun Wuxin started softly. She knew a little about the matters between her father and Hu Poyun. Xianxia stared forward and said, seemingly to himself, For everything you gain, you often lose something else. What is this loss that concerns you, father? Yun Wuxin asked. Friends, I will never have friends for as long as I live, to be honest. Xianxia didn't feel too disappointed or regretful when he admitted this to both his daughter and himself. That being said, there was no avoiding a bit of melancholy. Why's that? Is it because you stand too high in this world? Xianxia smiled a little before continuing. When you've come to see a person as a friend, and that person happened to be at a low point of his life, you will worry for him, feel bad for him, and try everything in your power to help him. The opposite is equally true. When he is at a high point of his life, you will take pride in his achievements and be happy for him. However, what if he climbed too high for you to catch up to him? What if he climbed higher still? Then the floodgates of sadness and disappointment will open, especially when one day you have to strain your neck just to look up to him. Your friend still thinks of you as a friend, and he will still sacrifice himself for you just like before, but you just can't see him as a friend anymore. Even his help will feel like a bitter fruit to swallow. But why? Yun Wuxin had never experienced this. Naturally, she couldn't comprehend her father's explanation. For 2 people to be true friends, there must exist some kind of equality between them, Xianxia said. Still not comprehending, Yun Wuxin moved her lips but didn't speak. That man, his name is Hu Poyun. He was a lofty genius. He never had a friend in his life because he was too lofty and a true genius until he met me. However, I climbed too quickly and too high. I even trivialized his proudest golden crow flames and stole his first love, friend, power, love. I noticed his changes back then, but I hadn't noticed the unintentional blows I dealt to him repeatedly. He probably resented me, I think. Yun Wuxin said, but if he really thinks of you as his friend, he should have recognized the sense of inferiority and stopped it from developing into resentment, right? Yun Qi said sorrowfully, it is not so simple. A person's emotions are already complex enough, but no one person shares the exact same emotions. Many people cannot even realize who they are, much less someone else. Huo Poyun resented him, but he also risked everything to save him when he became a devil person and hunted by the 3 divine regions. He didn't want him to find out about it either. Yun Wuxin thought some more before asking, what about Uncle Zia and Uncle Zio? Don't you think of them as friends? They are different, Yun Qi replied. Yuanba grew up with me and Zio Yun and I share the same parents. Our relationship is a familial one, not one of friendship. Now that I am Emperor Yun, no one will ever be my equal, naturally. No one can truly be my friend anymore. That's fine. Yun Wuxin smiled suddenly. You can't even handle all the women you're courting right now. Friends will only short your free time more than they already are. Yun Wuxin's unexpected comment caused Yun Qi to laugh out loud and lose some of the gloominess that had been gathering in his heart. He gave his daughter's ear a punch and said, you are getting more and more cheeky, I see. Your mom's so going to rant at me when she hears about this. No, she won't. I'm the model of innocence and obedience when I'm in front of Mom, hee. Yun Wuxin replied with a beautiful and cheeky smile. They continued trading banter as they flew eastward at high speed. Eastern Divine Region, Snow Song Realm. Yun Wuxin had spent much of her life living in frozen cloud immortal palace, so she had fallen in love with the snowy world that was the Snow Song Realm in almost no time at all. She kept letting out cries of wonder and astonishment as they made their way to the Divine Ice Phoenix sect. However, she suddenly grew nervous when the sect was finally within sight. It was because the venerated Mu Xuanian and one very special person to both her mother and her were residing in the Divine Ice Phoenix sect. Father, how should I address Ancestor Bingyun when I meet her? She asked very seriously and nervously. Let's see, Yun Qi hummed thoughtfully. Your mom calls her Great Ancestor Master, so you should emulate her example. On the other hand, I used to call her Senior when I was a disciple of the Divine Ice Phoenix sect. Also, your mom and Xuanian are now sisters, so she's now my sister-in-law auntie to you. Yun Wuxin, not sign W not sign, therefore. You can either address her as Great Ancestor Master, Senior, Immortal Master Bingyun, or Auntie. You know what? Just call her whatever you like. You can even call her Fairy Sister if you want to. No way. Yun Wuxin rejected his last suggestion immediately. The junior must not forget their manners. Don't shoot me your rotten ideas now. Father, ha. Yun Qi guffawed even though he didn't think that Fairy Sister was a rotten idea in the slightest. Auntie Kejai told me that Auntie Xuanian is the strongest person in the world after you. Father, is that true? Yun Wuxin asked another question. In terms of profound cultivation, that is definitely the case. Yun Qi nodded affirmatively. Besides that, she is the only person in the entire universe who can get within 5 kilometers of me without me noticing. Aya, why do you sound so troubled? Yun Wuxin blinked with obvious mischief. Are you afraid that Auntie Xuanian will catch you red-handed while you're doing something bad? That's not even the worst of it. Yun Qi sighed. Not only is she insanely good at hiding her presence, she actually seems to enjoy the act of voy. Suddenly, he cut himself off as if he just realized something and straightened his expression. She seems to enjoy protecting me in secret. To be fair, I have been a trouble magnet practically since the first day she knew me. That's why she would observe our surroundings and eliminate the hidden threats around us from time to time. As he said this, his gaze traveled everywhere with imperceptible speed. Oh, Yun Wuxin grinned. I didn't know Auntie Xuanian had such a cute side to her. She has gone from my master to my wife, and I can confidently say that it is the biggest fortune of my life to have obtained her. Yun Qi declared smilingly while staring at the endless snow in front of him. Yun Wuxin moved her head until she was right next to her father's ear before whispering in her smallest voice. Is Auntie Xuanian spying on us right now? I don't know, but just in case, Yun Qi replied just as softly, Yun Wuxin. The arrival of Emperor Yun couldn't be a small matter. The entire Divine Ice Phoenix sect was in turmoil when his arrival was made known. The elders and palace masters rushed over to meet him. but they didn't even manage to bend the knee before Xianxia and Wuxin vanished straight into the Ice Phoenix sacred region. They could only exchange helpless looks with each other. A familiar, icy aura hit him the moment he entered the Ice Phoenix sacred region. The next moment, a woman as beautiful as an ice fairy walked up to them. "I thought it might be the two of you considering the commotion." Mu Bingyun greeted them smilingly before looking at Wuxin. "Long time no see, Palace Master Bingyun." Qianheng nodded back with a smile. For some reason, he always felt relaxed and peaceful whenever he met Mu Bingyun. It was the same even after he became Emperor Yun. Maybe it was because her eyes reflected the color of ice, but she herself was really as gentle and easygoing as water. Wuxin chose this moment to take a small step forward and bow down before Mu Bingyun. Junior disciple of Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace, Wuxin greets the great ancestor master. A bit caught off guard by her seriousness and formality, Mu Bingyun shook her head smilingly. "It is okay. Mu Bingyun of Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace passed away at least 1,000 years ago. Today, that past is long behind me, and I am simply Mu Bingyun of the Snow Song realm. You do not need to call me Great Ancestor Master." "In that case," Wuxin looked up. "Can I call you Auntie?" The question caused the usually unflappable Mu Bingyun to break into a wide smile. "Of course. My older sister is your father's consort, so I am your auntie as a matter of course." Qianheng. "This girl, she actually managed to use both appellations seamlessly." Mu Bingyun turned to Qianheng next. "As expected of the daughter of Emperor Yun, what a lovable child." "Palace Master Bingyun," Qianheng said, "please address me how you used to. Although I've gotten comfortable with the title Emperor Yun, it feels extremely odd coming from you." Wuxin shifted her gaze to her father imperceptibly. Very well," Mu Bingyun nodded. "Auntie," Wuxin suddenly cried out sweetly, "do you know that you look even prettier than I initially imagined? No wonder father always told me that you look like a fairy." Qianheng's eyebrows trembled like a string. "Since when have I ever said that?" For a moment, Mu Bingyun was lost for words. "While we were entering the Eastern Divine Region, father told me that it's been a year since he saw you, and that he misses you ouch." It was Qianheng clapping a hand on top of Wuxin's head before saying seriously, "Where has Qianheng gone to, Palace Master Bingyun? Why is she not in the sacred region?" "She is in seclusion right now," Mu Bingyun answered as before. On the surface, it looked like Wuxin's words hadn't affected her. "Seclusion? It is just to meditate on her heart and cultivate her soul," Mu Bingyun replied in a gentle voice. "She is aware that the two of you will be arriving around this time. She told me to inform her once you've arrived." "I shall do that right now. It's fine." Qianheng raised his hand to stop her. "Wuxin and I will just visit her directly. The chill in Mist End Valley is extremely heavy. It is not something Wuxin can endure," Mu Bingyun said. "This is Wuxin's first time here anyway, so you may as well show her around the sacred region first." "Very well." Qianheng stopped declining. "Thank you for your trouble, Palace Master Bingyun." He remained as respectful as he was back when he was just a disciple. "Oh right, how long will the two of you be staying in the Snow Song realm?" Mu Bingyun asked. Qianheng shot Wuxin a glance. "That depends on Wuxin, really." "More like the opposite," Wuxin muttered defiantly because her father was messing up her hair. Mu Bingyun shot them one last smile before leaving the place. The second Mu Bingyun's aura was far enough. Qianheng immediately put on an angry face and growled at Wuxin. "What was that? You're really getting more and more out of control, girl." I was just helping you, father," Wuxin replied in a timid and aggrieved tone. "Like I need any help from you." "That is true," Wuxin nodded deeply. "Your ability to handle women is already off the charts. You can handle this yourself." "That's not what I meant." Qianheng let out a long sigh after uttering that. He was really starting to think that he had led his daughter astray during this journey. How was he going to explain this to Shui Yingyue later? Wuxin giggled like a little devil. "You've already put your magic on that other auntie anyway. It's not good to favor one and discriminate against the other, right? That's not how you interpret or use that idiom." Qianheng's voice grew louder, and his eyes widened even more. Qianheng's stern expression finally cowed Wuxin and made her worried. "Why, you're not actually angry, are you?" She grabbed her father's sleeve and tugged it timidly. I wasn't trying to make you angry on purpose. It's just, you looked pretty unhappy when you said that you could never have friends, so I was thinking that maybe this would cheer you up. I really wasn't trying to make you angry on purpose." Touched by his daughter's thoughtfulness, Qianheng immediately replaced his stern expression with a hearty laugh. Ha 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 ha, I didn't think it would be this easy to scare you, girl. Looks like my authority as a father hasn't diminished much after all, ha 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 ha. Yun Wuxin immediately tossed his sleeve away and turned her face away from Yun Qi, humping. Damn it, I should have known that you wouldn't be angry over something like this. You might even be happy for the assist. HMPH. Suddenly, the sound of the wind and snow turned pleasant. Yet another fairy-like woman stepped out from behind the snow. When Yun Wuxin turned to see who it was, her eyes met the woman's countenance and her lips parted unconsciously. After the woman came to a stop in front of Yun Qi and Yun Wuxin, she looked at the former and asked, "What should I call you now, Emperor Yun or Senior Brother Yun?" Her gaze looked the same as ever. It never changed whether he was Yun Qi, the Devil Master, or Emperor Yun. Yun Qi replied, "Since it's Feixiu, of course I would prefer to hear Senior Brother Yun or Yun Qi from you." "Fairy sister," Yun Wuxin said suddenly, "nice to meet you. I am Yun Wuxin." Yun Qi. She called her fairy sister? At first, Mu Feixiu looked a bit surprised. Then her icy pupils melted into obvious gentleness and something complicated. "I would not think that Senior Brother Yun has a daughter this big already. The passage of time truly is as beautiful and cruel as this eternal snow." "Be that as it may, it seems that time's concept of cruelty doesn't apply to you, Feixiu," Yun Qi said smilingly. Her pupils shivered a little, and the tiniest smile appeared on her face. It was too bad that Mu Feixiu's smile had always been as vanishing as the first snow. "I shall not disturb you two any longer." She stepped away after leaving behind these departing words. Yun Wuxin's gaze kept lingering on Mu Feixiu's back. She didn't look away even after she was long gone. "She looks very similar to your mom, doesn't she?" Yun Qi asked. "Ah, does she?" Yun Wuxin exclaimed in surprise. Her surprise made Yun Qi surprised. "Then why were you staring at her like that?" Yun Wuxin narrowed her eyes at her father, but she soon realized that her father wasn't faking his astonishment. So she asked, "She was the one who gave you the eternal imagery stone, right, father?" "Huh," Yun Qi rubbed the tip of his nose. "How did you know that? Did your Auntie Qianheng tell you about it? I even know that she likes you very, very, very much." For some reason, Yun Wuxin sounded odd when she said this. "Okay, you definitely didn't hear that from your Auntie Qianheng," Yun Qi declared immediately. Yun Wuxin's eyes grew even odder. "Father, I just want to check, but don't tell me you didn't watch the projection engraved in the eternal imagery stone at all before you gave it to me as a gift." Startled, Yun Qi shook his head. "No, I told her that I was going to gift the eternal imagery stone to my daughter after all. All I was thinking after I got it was to give it to you as quickly as possible. I had no idea there was an existing projection in the eternal imagery stone. Did she make it?" Yun Wuxin stomped her foot angrily. "Father, you're such a dumb sometimes, you know that?" Yun Qi. Huh. It's bad enough that you're so fickle in love, but it's even worse that you would betray the love of someone this wonderful and single-minded." Yun Wuxin took out the eternal imagery stone in question and slapped it on her father's palm. "Watch it now, I'll show myself around while you do so." Before Yun Qi could say anything, she turned away and flew toward the sacred hall, leaving him to reflect upon his mistakes. "Wuxin, where are you go?" However, Yun Wuxin ignored him completely and flew out of sight in no time. Both exasperated and amused, Yun Qi shook his head and held up the eternal imagery stone. He had to admit that Yun Wuxin's reaction had made him very curious. His profound energy seeped into the eternal imagery stone. As it turned out, there were a lot of projections inside the object, such as the birthday images Yun Wuxin had shown him before, some daily life images she left behind for various reasons, and many more relating to Chu Yuechen or Feng Zuer. A short while later, he finally found the earliest projection in the eternal imagery stone and summoned it. The background was that of icy crystals, icy branches, and a familiar, cold mist that looked thick enough to spill into reality. Yun Qi immediately recognized it as a bedroom in the Ice Phoenix sacred region. Then Mu Feixiu slowly entered the scene. "Yun Qi." Her icy pupils seemed unfocused and misty as she stared forward. The whisper that escaped her lips was without a doubt his name. "Today is the 700th day since news of your death reached this realm. It has been an ordeal that is both short and impossibly long." Her voice sounded as ephemeral as a dream. "I had thought that time would heal all wounds, but when I hear the sound of the wind, I hear your voice. When I look at the heavenly lake, I see your image. When I feel the air, I sense your aura. And when I touch the snow, it felt cold enough to deaden my soul. Even on the occasions that I regain clarity of mind, your name still won't leave my finger." At first, Yun Qi didn't get what she was saying. Then he realized in shock that every object in the shimmering projection, the ice tables, the ice walls, the ice corals, the ice branches, they all had his name engraved on them. A myriad of emotions rose from his heart at this moment. The clearest one was a pain he couldn't describe. He had known that Mu Feixu was in love with him, but he had no idea that it was to this extent. He recalled every interaction he ever had with Mu Feixu, but he just couldn't find the one that made her so infatuated with him. Is this what the books describe as the tribulations of love? No wonder they all say that it is easier to survive 10,000 calamities than it is to survive one love tribulation. She closed her eyes as she traced the names she had engraved with her fingertips. I regret choosing fear when you were still with me. I regret backing down again and again when I should be advancing. If a miracle exists in this world, I swear I won't run away in shame any longer. I will look you in the eyes and tell you that I am not your little fairy. I will tell you that I only want to be your Mu Feixu forever. That was where the projection ended. It was the only projection Mu Feixu had engraved in the eternal imagery stone. Yunqi stayed where he was and blanked out for a very long time. 2. When he was still in the snow song realm, Mu Feixu had done everything in her power to avoid him. Wherever he went, she would refuse to appear unless absolutely necessary. That never changed even after he attended the profound God convention. After he died in the star god realm and returned to the snow song realm 3 years later, her attitude had suddenly changed tremendously. It was Mu Feixu who suggested gifting his daughter an eternal imagery stone. It was also her who gave him the eternal imagery stone. At this point, he fully realized that she was trying to convey her deepest thoughts to him through the eternal imagery stone. However, he had assumed that it was a brand new eternal imagery stone and hadn't checked its contents at all. He had gifted it to Yun Wuxin immediately. Of course, Yun Wuxin thought that her father had watched this projection when she saw it for the first time. She might even think, no, she definitely thought that her father was showing off to her and mentally preparing her for her new auntie. After that, Yunqi treated Mu Feixu exactly the same as before, so she must have thought that his indifference was his way of letting her down kindly. Yunqi smacked himself in the head hard. SS, how could I have been so stupid? I should have checked the eternal imagery stone at least once. He finally realized just how much loneliness and pain she was hiding every time Mu Feixu watched him with those cool eyes of hers and favored him with her tiny smile. It took him another while before he finally stopped beating himself up. While he was holding the eternal imagery stone, he accidentally triggered the next projection after Mu Feixu's. It showed a Yun Wuxin who was just about to hit 15 years old. Hee, Daddy, this is the first time I've used the eternal imagery stone you gifted me. I don't know if I'm doing this right, but it doesn't matter, right? I'm your daughter. You're not allowed to dislike it even if it turns out to be ugly. HMPH, HMPH. An unconscious smile crept onto his lips as he watched his childish daughter. It took me a very, very long time to make the 3 glazed sound stones I gifted Daddy, so you cannot damage them no matter what, okay? If you do, I'll punish you by making you repair them with me. It's a promise, okay? This is the proof, and any objections will not be accepted, hee. As I could ever allow them to be damaged. Yunqi spoke to himself smilingly. This is one punishment you'll never be able to fulfill. He had fought many dangerous and life-threatening battles right up until the final battle against the Western Divine Region, and his body had suffered God knows how many injuries up to that point. However, the tricolored glazed light stones he wore around his neck had never suffered so much as a single scratch. His spiritual perception flickered again, and the third projection began playing. It was not an unfamiliar scene. It was the one Yun Wuxin had shown him on her 20th birthday. To be more specific, it was the supernatural phenomena that had occurred when the blue pole star was teleported from the east of the Eastern Divine Region to the south of the Southern Divine Region. It had only happened for a short moment, but Yun Wuxin had still managed to capture it with the eternal imagery stone. He had already seen the projection before, and he remembered its contents clearly to this day, but Yunqi thought that he might as well let it play out until the end. The blue sky shivered, space itself trembled, and the clouds were scattered into nothing. A thick crimson light spread out with incredible speed and enveloped everything in no time. It was exactly the same as he remembered it. When the projection was about to end, Yunqi brushed his finger against the eternal imagery stone and turned it off. Right as the projection disappeared, Yunqi's gaze suddenly shivered a little. It was because he had caught sight of a purple flash right before the end. The purple flash had happened so quickly and was so short that it was utterly beyond the eyesight of a normal person to catch. Even Xianxia hadn't noticed it when he watched the projection the first time. Even now, he still thought that he was mistaken and that it was probably something his mind hallucinated because he wasn't paying attention. 1. He had gone through an untold number of trials and tribulations to arrive at where he was today. He was no longer the careless person who would let a detail, especially one that felt off, slip past him just because it had felt minor and inconsequential. So he summoned the profound energy and replayed the projection once more. This time, he gathered his mind, and besides the split spiritual perception that was following Yun-Wuxin, kept his eyes and his full perception trained on the projection. Blue pole star's space was shaking, and the crimson divine light of the world piercer was spreading quickly, when the red light fully encompassed the entire projection. He caught sight of that purple flash once more. It only appeared for a brief instant, but it more than confirmed that it wasn't just a hallucination of his mind. At the same time, his heart started beating wildly. That purple was... No, it cannot be. He pressed a palm to his chest. His heartbeat was so strong that it actually felt like it was physically ramming against his palm. He shook his head powerfully and replayed the projection again. At the same time, he pressed a finger imbued with profound energy against the projection. Sometimes when a person's nervousness and tension reaches a certain level, they might feel as if the world itself had fallen silent, that the flow of time itself had become infinitely slower. He stopped breathing, but even then he couldn't suppress the mad beating of his heart. When the replay finally reached a certain moment, he unleashed the profound energy imbued in his finger. It felt like a miracle. The replay froze at the exact moment the purple flash appeared. Equally frozen was Xianxia's body, face, breathing, blood flow, and heartbeat. It was as if everything had become frozen in ice. Everything except his rapidly dilating pupils. This was the frozen scene in the projection. The crimson light of the world piercer was enveloping the blue sky, and outside of it was an unusually thin yet deep layer of purple light. There were countless purple-colored powers in the entire universe. Thunder profound practitioners practically inhaled and exhaled purple with every boom of thunder. However, Xianxia was at a level where he could easily differentiate any power on sight no matter how similar their colors were. That was why he could declare with certainty that this wasn't the first time he had seen the purple light in the projection. One might even say that he was all too familiar with it. It had protected him, almost killed him, fought against him. He remembered every moment it had appeared in his life clearly to this day. After all, it was a power that had belonged to the moon god realm, the divine light of the purple pylon moon god. The bearer of its legacy was none other than Xianxia Qingyue, the deceased moon god emperor herself. The snow blew at erratic speeds. It wasn't long before Xianxia was covered in a layer of pure white snow. However, Xianxia remained as frozen as a lifeless statue. One breath stretched to 10, and 10 stretched to 100. Perhaps the passage of time itself had become completely meaningless to him. He was too busy contending with the violent shock that was drumming inside his brain with the power of 10,000 crashes of thunder. He couldn't believe his eyes, but even less could he fool himself to believe that the translucent, crystal-like purple on the projection wasn't real. There was only one purple pylon divine power in this universe. There couldn't be a second bearer of the purple pylon divine power. So, what is this? Before calamity struck, it was Meiyin who used the world piercer to move the blue pole star to the south of the southern divine region. The day Yun-Wuxin engraved this image was the same day the blue pole star was about to be destroyed. The red radiance in the projection was without a doubt the spatial divine power of the world piercer as well. So why did her power appear at the same time as space as this spatial divine power? Why did the person who destroyed the blue pole star before my very eyes? What is going on? What the hell is going on here? He abruptly bit the tip of his tongue. Blood flooded his mouth as pain brought clarity and order back to his chaotic thoughts. However, his pupils still refused to contract. It was at this moment a couple of unimportant questions and contradictions that he had almost forgotten altogether surfaced from the depths of his mind. Some time ago, I took a trip to the Dragon God realm, and I found out about some matters regarding Senior Shenzai. However, it is not the right time to tell you about that now. The reason why I am mentioning it to you right now is to tell you that you do not need to visit the Dragon God realm in the near future. This was what Xianxia Qingyue told him before everything had gone to hell. He was standing shoulder to shoulder with Xianxia Qingyu before the wall of primal chaos and getting ready to see off the heaven-smiting devil emperor. Beyond the destroyed blue pole star, she had pointed the purple pylon divine sword oozing with purple light and the stench of death at his lifeless face. She had watched him with a pair of purple eyes as cold and desolate as the abyss itself, and said in a pitying voice, "I suppose that there's no harm in telling you one thing before you die. I told you yesterday that there was something I needed to speak to you about when the time was right, but it would appear that such a time will never come. In that case, I may as well tell you about it now. Xianxia is dead. Some time ago, I went to the Dragon God realm and discovered that the forbidden land of Samsara was completely destroyed. All the plants are dead, no one is around, and its spirit energy is completely spent. Later on, I went to the center of the forbidden land of Samsara and found a pool of blood in the middle. Although a long time had passed, the blood showed no signs of drying at all. It's because it had pure light aura in it. Can you guess whose blood it was?" After he killed Long Bai, re-entered the Dragon God realm and forcefully dispelled the barrier that surrounded the entire forbidden land of Samsara, a doubt had sprung from his mind. It was because the barrier had been imbued with Long Bai's draconic soul. It was almost impossible for anyone to breach it without being noticed. He once asked Qianheng, "Qianheng, are there any methods that will allow someone to slip into this kind of soul-infused barrier undetected?" She had answered, "The first is to use the eternal heaven god realm's great void cauldron. As the strongest spatial artifact of this era, slipping through a soul-infused barrier shouldn't pose a problem to it, no matter how many layers there are. The second is a special spatial profound technique from the purple micro realm called the prime purple micro. However, I cannot guarantee that the Great Void Cauldron can slip through a soul-infused barrier of this level undetected. As for the Prime Purple Micro technique, it's a skill that no one in the Purple Micro realm has been able to cultivate for 200,000 years. The third is naturally the World Piercer that Shui Meiyin currently owns. As a profound heavenly treasure and the undisputed strongest spatial divine artifact in the history of the primal chaos, an artifact that can even switch planetary objects across the universe. Penetrating a mere soul-infused barrier like this one is nothing more than child's play. The Moon God realm doesn't have any similar secret spatial techniques, correct?" Qianheng answered again. "I remember you telling me that it was Xianxia Qingyu who told you about Xianxia's death. So you are wondering why Xianxia Qingyu would be able to figure this out, even though Long Bai had personally set up a soul-infused barrier around this area, right?" HMPH, there's nothing strange about that. Every king realm has their own deeply hidden secrets and trump cards. It wouldn't be strange if the Moon God realm possessed some sort of secret spatial art or hidden spatial artifact that no one else knows about. However, Senior Devil Emperor did not want the World Piercer to accompany her into her eternal exile from the primal chaos, so she handed it over to me before she left. The World Piercer was born in the core of the primordial universe, so she said these words to me: "Only your stainless divine soul, birthed by the primordial energies of this universe, can nurture and temporarily awaken the needle spirit that slumbers within the World Piercer." The stainless divine soul was then used as a medium to connect to the needle spirit which had been roused from its slumber for a little while, and I would then proceed to use my own strength to forcibly activate the World Piercer's dimensional powers. This conversation had occurred when Shui Meiyin was telling him the whole truth. It was to let him know that her divine stainless soul was the only thing in the world that could temporarily awaken the World Piercer's slumbering spirit to activate its spatial divine power with her own powers. It was why the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor had purposely left her the World Piercer. However, her claim didn't quite match the records of the World Piercer written in the ancient records of the Dragon God. According to the ancestral God canon, the World Piercer and the World Piercer's needle spirit had been birthed side by side from the primordial universe. Therefore, if the owner of the World Piercer possessed a power that also originated from the primordial universe, they could channel their own energy through the medium that was the World Piercer's needle spirit and use its spatial divine powers by force. However, this method of usage would greatly damage the World Piercer's needle spirit and especially the user, so it shouldn't be considered unless there was literally no other choice. The writer had claimed that any power that originated from the primordial universe could perform the action. The divine stainless soul was one such power. The other was The most ridiculous thought he ever had since this discovery, the biggest impossibility of all impossibilities sprouted in his mind. The worst part of it all was that this supposedly ridiculous and impossible possibility fixed all of the doubts and contradictions like it was the key to the lock all along. No, no. What am I thinking? That's just not, it's impossible. His fingers slowly but surely clenched into a fist. He then engraved the frozen projection as a new projection inside the eternal imagery stone. Suddenly, he recalled something and fished out 4 jade stones glowing a faint blue profound light a bit clumsily. They were the illusory glazed imagery jades. These 4 illusory glazed imagery jades were the same 4 Shui Meiyin had used to secretly engrave the betrayal of the god emperors and divine masters after the heaven-smiting devil emperor had left, and show the truth to the entire god realm when Xianxia was invading the eastern divine region. When he played and watched all 4 projections at the same time, the first jade showed the return of the heaven-smiting devil emperor. The second jade showed the realm kings and god emperors calling him the god-child messiah and lavishing him with praise. The third jade showed the heaven-smiting devil emperor announcing to the same group of people that she was leaving the primal chaos, and the one who ultimately drove her decision was Xianxia. And the final jade showed the heaven-smiting devil emperor speaking to the engraver, Shui Meiyin herself. Shui Meiyin had engraved these recordings in secret, so of course she didn't show up in them. However, now that he was rewatching them with a completely different mindset, he abruptly realized that Xianxia Qianheng didn't show up in the jades either. He wasn't present in the scene in the 4th jade as a matter of course, but the rest of them. The return of the heaven-smiting devil emperor, him becoming known as the god-child messiah, and the heaven-smiting devil emperor announcing her departure. He remembered clearly that Xianxia Qianheng was present for all of them. The reason he, or anyone else for that matter, never questioned this was because there was simply no reason to when they first made it onto the eternal heaven projection. Shui Meiyin declared that she was the one who engraved them, so it was. At the time, who in their right mind would even consider such an extreme, unlikely possibility? Xianxia had experienced 3 out of 4 of the moments engraved in these illusory glazed imagery jades, so he could confidently say that they were much shorter than what had actually happened at the time. For whatever reason, a lot of scenes had been cut out from the recordings. At the time, everyone thought that the scenes were cut short for clarity's sake, that it was to present the truth to the world in the easiest and quickest way possible. However, what if those scenes were removed to hide something? If Shui Meiyin really was the one who engraved them, why would she purposely remove the scenes with Xianxia Qianheng in them? Was it a coincidence? Or was it Xianxia Qianheng who? No. What am I thinking? Impossible, impossible, impossible. How could I even consider this? She. What are you doing, chair? Why did you let Wuxin run off on her own? A cool voice entered his ears and chilled his soul to the core. For some reason, Xianxia preferred to address Xianxia as chair in private. Maybe it was because she was used to it, or maybe she just didn't want to change it. When she caught sight of Xianxia after she and Midway landed on the snow, though, shock rippled through her eyes instantly. Before Xianxia could react, she appeared in front of him and frowned deeply. What happened? Why is your aura so chaotic? Xianxia looked up and tried to pull the corners of his lips upward. It was one of his ugliest and most forced smiles to date. It's nothing. I'm just feeling a bit cold. Cold? His response only made Midway and Midway more confused. Midway gently grabbed Xianxia's wrist and tried to say something, but the next moment she realized that Xianxia was holding her hand. The unnatural coldness of his skin made her shudder. Xianxian, he said quietly, can you watch over Wuxin for me? I need to go do something. Then, still barely in control of his aura, he let go and took off to the south. However, Midway appeared in front of Xianxia again and caught his wrist in a much tighter grip. What happened? Tell me now, or I'm coming with you. Xianxia shook his head and shot her a reassuring smile. Thankfully, it was a lot less forced than the previous one. Don't worry, it's not because of some sudden danger or anything. I just want to seek confirmation. Until I have my answers, I don't think I can rest easy for even a moment. He removed Midway's hand gently after he said this. Then he took off into the snow once more. This time, Midway neither stopped nor chased after him. She simply watched his vanished figure with deep worry in her eyes. Sister, what happened to him? Midway appeared beside her and stared at the horizon Xianxia had vanished to. Midway didn't give her an answer. A long time later, she whispered a bit dazedly to herself. What else in this world could throw his heart into such disarray? Xianxia flew very quickly. The space he passed through was completely severed, and the resulting storm was so terrible that the smaller planets actually shifted out of orbit. Was the truth he saw with his own eyes false? Was the most impossible possibility the truth? He cut a beeline across the eastern divine region. He passed by planet after planet. Finally, a ball of watery blue profound light entered his sight. It was the glazed light realm he visited with Yun Wuxin not long ago. On the way, he only wished he could increase his maximum speed by another 10 or 100 times. Now that glazed light realm was in front of him, though, his speed actually grew slower and slower. The heart he had just calmed started beating wildly once more. Meiyin, it's all just a coincidence, and it's all just my stupid imagination playing tricks with me. You can give me a perfect explanation, right? 1. Yunqi slowly descended from the sky. He could already feel a familiar aura approaching him right as he touched down on glazed light realm soil. Big brother Yunqi! A sweet cry of pleasant surprise cut through the air as Shui Meiyin descended from the sky like a lithe black butterfly. It really is you. Why have you come back all of a sudden? Did you miss me that much? She was just about to glomp onto Yunqi when she noticed his disoriented aura and expression. Her smile quickly disappeared as she asked worriedly, "What's wrong, big brother Yunqi? Did something happen?" Her spiritual perception swept through the area before she asked again, "Where is Wuxin?" Meiyin. He stared straight into Shui Meiyin's pitch-black pupils. "Was Xia Qingyu the one who gave you the world piercer?" The sudden question smacked into Shui Meiyin's face with the force of a blunt hammer, stunning her temporarily. However, instead of the panic Yunqi had expected to see surfacing from Shui Meiyin's eyes, he saw only natural astonishment and puzzlement. "Uh-huh," she tilted her head slightly in confusion. "The world piercer, Xia Qingyu. I don't understand what you mean. The heaven-smiting devil emperor was the one who gave me the world piercer. How could it be Xia Qingyu? Why are you asking such a strange question, big brother Yunqi?" He had caught her completely by surprise, but he couldn't find anything out of the ordinary in her eyes or her expression. If she was someone else, Yunqi's suspicion might have faded for the most part. Unfortunately, she was Shui Meiyin, owner of the divine stainless soul. He shifted his gaze away from Shui Meiyin's eyes and toward the horizon. Then he said in a calm tone, "Before we saw off the heaven-smiting devil emperor, Xia Qingyu once told me that something had happened to Shen Zai and warned me away from it. When everything went to hell right before she tried to kill me, she told me again that she had personally ventured into the forbidden land of Samsara and could confirm that Shen Zai was dead." Shui Meiyin. "After I eliminated Long Bai, I traveled to the forbidden land of Samsara and discovered that the barrier had been imbued with his dragon's soul. I also discovered that her description of the place, all the plants are dead, a pool of blood in the middle, was completely correct. So the question is, how on earth did Xia Qingyu enter the forbidden land of Samsara without triggering the dragon's soul on the barrier?" Shui Meiyin was about to answer when Yunqi continued, "If she had the world piercer, she could do so easily. In fact, it may very well be, because she had the world piercer, that she had no idea that the barrier was imbued with Long Bai's soul. After all, why risk probing the barrier and potentially triggering its traps or alarms when she could just ignore it completely in the first place? That was probably the first mistake she made. It was a suspicious point, but not a conspicuous one. It was why Yunqi had only puzzled over it for a short time, and Kai and Yinger had overlooked it when they noticed it at the beginning." Shui Meiyin frowned in puzzlement and worry. Long Bai's soul-imbued barrier is of course amazing, but the world piercer is hardly the only spatial artifact that could achieve untraceable space crossing. For example, the Eternal Heaven Realm's Great Void Cauldron could do it. Every star realm that has survived long enough in this dangerous world to accumulate their strength must also have their own secrets, and spatial profound artifacts are easily among the most jealously guarded secrets of all of them, because they can mean the difference between life and death in a crisis. It is hardly unusual for a king realm like the Moon God realm to possess a strange, powerful spatial artifact that could perform such a feat. As the Moon God Emperor, Xia Qingyu would have known all of them and been able to use them as she pleased. This is not worth looking into at all. This cannot be why you're suddenly asking me these strange questions, big brother Yunqi." Shui Meiyin's answer was more or less identical to what Kai and Yinger told him back then. "There was another thing that puzzled me." Instead of refuting Shui Meiyin's point, Yunqi moved on like she hadn't said anything. "Back when you told me the truth, You told me that your divine stainless soul is the only thing that could forcefully activate the world piercer's spatial divine powers and complete Blue Pole Star's teleportation. It was why the heaven-smiting devil emperor gave you the world piercer in the first place. Yes, Shui Meiyin nodded lightly. However, the passage regarding the world piercer written in the ancient records of the dragon gods clearly stated that anyone with the power of the primordial universe could perform the feat. It is definitely not a feat that is reserved for the divine stainless soul alone. The ancient record had been left behind by the ancient dragon god tribe itself. There was little reason to distrust it. Besides the deceased Yue Wugu, the two other people who fit the bill are you and the owner of Heart of Snow-Glazed Glass, Xia Qingyu. Shui Meiyin shook her head as her puzzled expression deepened. I can believe that the ancient records are completely accurate, but so what? The heaven-smiting devil emperor saw that I have the divine stainless soul, so she only told me that my divine stainless soul could be used to forcefully activate the world piercer if necessary. There's nothing strange about this. Suddenly, she moved in front of Xianxia, grabbed his hand and stared straight into his eyes. She then said seriously, "You're acting really strange today, big brother Xianxia. What in the world happened? You would never have come all the way here if these were the only matters that were troubling you. Tell me, please." Xianxia slowly raised his free hand and manifested the eternal imagery stone. Then he released the frozen image he had engraved a while ago. This is... Shui Meiyin examined the image seriously. The crimson light was without a doubt the divine light of the world piercer. But what was that purple light at the edge of the... Shui Meiyin's pupils contracted as if they had been pricked by needles. However, they returned to normal just as quickly. 7 years ago, when the Blue Pole Star was teleported to the south of the southern divine region, Wuxin happened to be engraving the exact moment with this eternal imagery stone. Xianxia said quietly, "The red light is the world piercer's spatial divine power, and the purple light is her purple pylon divine power." There was a hitch in his breathing before he continued in a seemingly calm voice. "You were the one who activated the world piercer to teleport the Blue Pole Star. So why was her power the one that appeared in the image? I wish to hear your explanation, Meiyin." Shui Meiyin watched him with slightly parted lips. There was puzzlement and astonishment in her expression, but still not one bit of panic. The duo watched each other quietly for a moment. Then Shui Meiyin covered her mouth and burst into a giggle as if she had just lost a staring match. "Xianxia, you can't be serious, big brother Xianxia," she asked smilingly while examining Xianxia's expression left and right. She looked as if she was trying to find the kinks in his expression and decide if this was a prank or not. "Hello?" A short while later, Xianxia's expression remained as stern as ever, so she started waving her hand right in front of his eyes. Her eyebrows curled further as if she was finding this situation more and more amusing by the second. Xianxia caught her hand and repeated himself. "I wish to hear your explanation." "It's very simple," Shui Meiyin finally started while scratching the back of Xianxia's hand playfully. "Have you heard of the Moon Brilliant Stone before, big brother Xianxia?" "Xianxia." Shui Meiyin explained smilingly. "Of the 12 moon god divine powers born by the moon god realm, the purple pylon divine power is considered to be the core and strongest of all of them. That is why the purple pylon moon god was usually the moon god emperor. Due to constant exposure to the purple pylon moon god's divine power, some of the profound jades in the moon god emperor's divine hall would gradually transform into the purple divine jade known as the Moon Brilliant Stone. Since the Moon Brilliant Stone is a product of the purple pylon divine power, its hue shares a very similar color as well. Although these jades are incredibly rare, my father shared a good relationship with the former moon god emperor Yue Wuya. He asked Yue Wuya if he could have some Moon Brilliant Stone to hasten the growth of my divine stainless soul, and Yue Wuya agreed. Since then, I've been wearing them on my person." Xianxia. "That day when disaster struck, I immediately teleported to the Blue Pole Star and activated the world piercer's spatial divine power to teleport it to safety. However, I obviously had no experience performing such a feat, and during the activation, some of the world piercer's spatial divine power spilled out and destroyed the Moon Brilliant Stones I was wearing. If I had to guess, they are the reason for the purple flash on this image. I did feel something break while I was performing the teleportation, but I could hardly spare the concentration at the time. Naturally, I had no idea about the purple pylon profound light that the shattered Moon Brilliant Stones had unleashed, much less Wuxin capturing this exact moment and causing you this strange misunderstanding." I'll find you a moon-brilliant stone sometime in the future. You'll understand everything when you see it shatter." Shui Meiyin's voice sounded as melodious and cleansing as usual. However, her explanation failed to convince him or put him at ease. The moon god realm had already been wiped out from existence. This so-called moon-brilliant stone might or might not exist. In short, there was no proof. He took out the 4 illusory glazed imagery jades next. "These were the 4 illusory glazed imagery jades you gave us to reveal the truth back then." Yuan-Chi watched her as he continued. "You were the engraver, so of course you weren't present in the scenes. However, why is Xia Qingyu absent from them as well? This is too much of a coincidence, isn't it?" "That's because it's not a coincidence," Shui Meiyin replied without hesitation or pause. "After you went to the northern divine region, I knew then that the 4 illusory glazed imagery jades hadn't been engraved for nothing. I knew that there would come a time where I could use them to reveal the truth to the world. However, the other scenes besides the one where only the heaven-smiting devil emperor was present were super-duper long and not suited for large-scale projections. So, while I was imprisoned in the moon prison, I removed many parts of the recordings and preserved only the most important scenes and voices. As for why the moon god emperor didn't show up in either recording, a bit of indignation appeared on Shui Meiyin's features as she spoke. Not only did she almost kill Big Brother Yuan-Chi and destroy your home planet, she also crippled my father and locked me in the deepest prison she could find in the moon god realm. She was the vilest, most evil woman I had ever met in my life. I dare say that I hated her to the bone at the time. So, I removed every one of her images from the recordings. I refused to give her even a second of screen time. HMPH? Yuan-Chi stared at her eyes for another while before whispering, "Is that so?" "Of course it is," Shui Meiyin nodded. Suddenly her black eyes shivered a little and her voice grew soft and aggrieved. "Don't you believe me, big brother Yuan-Chi? It's not that I don't believe you, but—" His eyes became a little unfocused and his palm was pressed against his chest before he realized it. A long time later, after failing to find the words to describe the chaotic emotions running amok in his heart, he shook his head and said, "I don't know. I just don't know." He wanted to believe that everything was simply his imagination. Shui Meiyin had given him all the answers he wanted to hear, so why was he still not completely convinced? He couldn't even tell if he was terrified to know that everything he knew was the truth or a lie. Yuan-Chi hadn't let go of Shui Meiyin's hand all this time, and it so happened to be the hand he used to press against his chest. Therefore, she could feel every thump of his shockingly intense heartbeat. "Big brother Yuan-Chi," Shui Meiyin pressed her free hand onto his chest and said softly, "You and the moon god emperor were husband and wife. She appeared at the lowest point of your life, overcame many trials and tribulations with you, and rescued you again and again. I can imagine just how deep your love and trust in her were back then. That's why her betrayal was so painful and unacceptable to you. It wasn't just me. A lot of people knew that the reason you weren't willing to speak of her in front of anyone was because you have never truly accepted her betrayal for what it was and let go. In fact, you were more willing to believe that everything that had happened was just a trick, a lie. That's why when the contradiction surfaced, you couldn't stop yourself from believing in the unlikeliest of possibilities and magnifying it until it felt true, even though you already knew that it couldn't be." Shui Meiyin's gentle words felt like hammer blows against Yuan-Chi's heart. He gritted his teeth a little and tried to reply, It's fine, big brother Yuan-Chi." Shui Meiyin smiled gently at him. "It is exactly because you're such a person that I fell in love with you in the first place. Even after all the pain you suffered, you were still willing to believe in the illusion where your former loved one did not betray you. That is fine. You don't need to force yourself to let go immediately. I'll keep you company until the illusion slowly submerges back into the shadows, okay?" Yuan-Chi's heartbeat slowed down a little. Shui Meiyin's soft voice was like a cool breeze that imprinted her every word into the walls of his heart. "Is that the truth?" he whispered to Shui Meiyin, or was it himself? "Amen," Shui Meiyin nodded strongly. "If big brother Yuan-Chi is still troubled, then how about I swear an oath?" With a smile on her face and the most poignant stars in her night-black eyes, she looked at the sky and began, "If I lied to big brother Yuan-Chi, then may I be forever? All right, all right." Suddenly, Yuan-Chi spoke up loudly and interrupted Shui Meiyin's oath. "How old are you, girl? Only kids would do something as childish as making oaths." Her starry eyes froze for a moment before dissolving into something more charming and bright. She stuck out her pink tongue at him and complained in dissatisfaction, "I'm not old at all. You will always be my big brother Yuan-Chi." Yes, yes, my Meiyin is forever 15 years old. Xianxia finally broke into a smile. That was the age Shui Meiyin was when she met him. He, clearly liking Xianxia's words, Shui Meiyin smiled even brighter and said, "If we're not making oaths, then I guess I'll just convince you another way. Trust me, it'll settle your restless thoughts once and for all." While maintaining eye contact, Shui Meiyin said very slowly, "If the Moon God Emperor was the original wielder of the World Piercer, if she was the one who teleported the blue pole star, if she was the one who engraved the 4 illusory glazed light jades, if her betrayal and her ruthlessness were faked, if the 2 times she tried to kill you were faked, if the reason she destroyed Blue Pole Star was because she knew it wasn't the real Blue Pole Star, and if the reason she didn't tell you anything was so that you could grow stronger without anything to hold you back, then why didn't she confess everything to you after you made your comeback? All she needed to do was to show you the World Piercer and explain a few things, and the tragedies that happened afterward would not have happened. She could have helped you herself and made it much easier to flatten the Eastern Divine region. The Moon God realm would have been safe and sound, and she wouldn't have perished in the abyss of nothingness. If that had happened, Shui Meiyin's voice suddenly grew distant and soft. What a beautiful ending it would have been. For a long time, Xianxia couldn't say anything. He could have found 10 times or 100 times more holes and contradictions than what he currently had, and Shui Meiyin's final explanation still would have been enough to refute them all. That was right. If everything really was Xia Qingyue's doing, all she needed to do was to tell him the truth when he made his comeback. There was absolutely no reason for her to push everything on Shui Meiyin before committing suicide through him. None. Not even the wildest reason he could dream up could explain this one thing. To continue investing oneself in something despite being unable to find any reason to support it was to delude oneself and to hurt everyone else around you. So Xianxia exhaled deeply before saying, "You are right, Meiyin. I've been thinking about that on my way over, and even now I can't not find a single reason to explain it. It is as you say, my subconscious already knew that I was just deluding myself, but I just can't." "It's okay. It really is okay," Shui Meiyin consoled him smilingly. "Who knows, maybe this experience will actually help you overcome your trauma faster." "Yeah." This time it was Xianxia who nodded strongly. His gaze also looked a lot more stable than before. "So, is Wuxin in the Snow Song realm right now?" Shui Meiyin changed the subject tactfully. "Assuming that you just ran off without warning, she must be really worried right now." Xianxia thought for a second before answering. "She'll be fine with Qianheng watching over her. Anyway, I'm going to visit father-in-law right now." "Eh?" Shui Meiyin exclaimed in surprise. Xianxia smiled. "It's about time father-in-law gets his final treatment. I may as well make it so the trip is not a complete waste of time, right?" "Okay," Shui Meiyin beamed. Shui Qianheng sat on the floor with his eyes closed and his face flushed. Sitting on the opposite side of him was Xianxia, circulating streams of light, profound energy around his whole body and through his fingertip. A long time ago, he had thought that the damage he suffered was completely irreversible. In reality, they were healing under the power of Xianxia's divine miracle of life right now. After today's treatment, even his powers would return to their prime in the very near future. Although he had already passed down his title to Shui Yingyue, he was the commanding enforcer of the entire Eastern Divine region right now. It was way cooler than being the glazed Light Realm King. For the past 2 years, he couldn't help but lament that sometimes having one great son-in-law was way better than having many sons. At the very least, he definitely hadn't pampered his daughter for nothing. 4 hours passed, and the final treatment was reaching its end. Visible traces of excitement started flashing across Shui Qianheng's features as he felt the awakening power in his profound veins. His reaction was perfectly understandable. Shui Meiyin had been guarding by her father and her husband's side throughout the process, although she had spent most of that time watching Xianxia with a besotted expression on her face. It was at this moment a loud woman's voice rang from outside the door. "Yinyin, come out and follow mommy somewhere, will you?" There was only one person in the entire glazed light realm who could act like this at the heart of the glazed light realm. She was the concubine who would rather die than become the queen mother, and the birth mother of Shui Yingyue and Shui Meiyin, Cheng Wangxiao. "Ah!" Shui Meiyin rose to her feet in a hurry and tiptoed her way toward the exit because she didn't want to disturb either Xianxia or her father. When she was outside the door, she finally whispered, "Where are we going, Mom? Big brother Xianxia is still inside." Cheng Wangxiao moved closer to her daughter's ear before whispering sneakily, Your older sister is about to come home. We gotta make room for her, understand? Not only did Shui Meiyin understand immediately, she even pulled her mother away in excitement and said, "Ooh, we gotta leave now before she sees us." "Slow down. We can go after I send her a message." The sound transmission was done in no time. The mother and daughter exchanged knowing smiles with each other before leaving shoulder to shoulder. They didn't inform anyone about their departure. Back in the room, Qianheng suddenly opened his eyes and withdrew the light, profound energy. "It's done," he declared with a confident smile. "Your profound veins are completely fine now, father-in-law. Your profound energy should return to normal in 3 months to half a year." No one knew about his profound veins better than Shui Qianheng himself, so of course he knew that Qianheng's declaration was absolutely true. He pushed down the urge to whoop like crazy before booming out a laugh. "Ha ha ha ha. With the great emperor of the god realm as my son-in-law, it doesn't really matter if my powers recover or not." Qianheng swept the area with his spiritual perception, but couldn't find Shui Meiyin nearby. "By the way, weren't you heading north with little Wuxin? Why did you come back so suddenly?" Shui Qianheng asked. He didn't believe that Qianheng had come back specifically to treat him. Qianheng replied, "To be honest with you, it's because I've run into a couple of difficult conundrums." "Difficult conundrums?" Shui Qianheng looked puzzled. "What is left in this universe that can puzzle Emperor Yun so? Now that I think about it, there is something that I would like to consult you about, father-in-law about." Qianheng's tone and expression were so casual that it was almost as if the matter was of no importance whatsoever. "Oh," Shui Qianheng grew interested. Without giving Shui Qianheng any explanation whatsoever, Qianheng asked directly, 7 years ago, on the day the heaven-smiting devil emperor left the primal chaos, someone delivered an unconscious me to the glazed light realm. Did Meiyin watch over me the whole time I was out?" "But of course." Shui Qianheng nodded without any hesitation. "You were a vile devil person who was being hunted by the entire primal chaos at the time. At first, she cried like the heavens had fallen when she saw that you were unconscious. After she recovered, she kept watch and didn't take even a single step away from you." Shui Qianheng shook his head smilingly. "It's not like I don't understand her. Considering the circumstances at the time, nothing could have removed her from your side." "Not even a single step, huh?" Qianheng continued smiling. Looking at him, you would think that he was simply enjoying some small talk and indulging in the little inconsequential secrets that he didn't know at the time. Yep, right as Shui Qianheng was about to nod, though, he suddenly paused for a second before breaking into an expression of remembrance. "Actually, I've misspoken. Now that I really thought about it, there was a time she vanished somewhere in the middle." Qianheng's eyebrows twitched, but he retained his casual expression and asked, "She did? Where to and for how long?" Shui Qianheng tilted his head slightly before answering. "I don't exactly remember because I was busy laying down the isolation barriers back then, but it couldn't have been more than half a quarter of an hour, though. When I asked her where she went, she ignored me like she hadn't even heard my question. In fact, she probably hadn't. You were the only thing in her head at the time." "I see," Qianheng nodded. "Why are you asking this suddenly?" Shui Qianheng asked. "Is this somehow related to that difficult conundrum you speak of?" "It is just a casual question. You don't need to overthink it, father-in-law," Qianheng replied smilingly. It was at this moment that the door opened to admit a pair of long, beautiful legs wearing a pair of jade shoes that shimmered a gem-like blue and the glazed light fairy dress. The room suddenly lit up, and Shui Yingyue's extraordinarily beautiful countenance entered their view. "You've returned, Yingyue," Shui Qianheng greeted her smilingly. Shui Yingyue gave her father a nod before looking at Qianheng. "What was your business with me, Emperor Yun?" Both Shui Qianheng and Qianheng were caught off guard by the question. What business? However, Shui Qianheng figured out what was going on immediately and kept silent. A strange gleam also appeared in Qianheng's eyes after his surprise had passed. He rose to his feet and shot Shui Yingyue a smile. "I have something that I would like to speak with you alone, if you don't mind." "Alone." Shui Qianheng shot to his feet before Qianheng could get another word out and shouted, "I suddenly recall that I forgot to feed the rocks behind the mountain, so I need to leave now before it's too late. No need to say goodbye. Have a nice chat." Bang. Shui Qianheng was gone right as he slammed the door shut. He even applied a sound isolation barrier for them. Qianheng, Shui Yingyue. Their surroundings turned silent. They stared at each other for a moment. When it finally clicked in Shui Yingyue's mind that they were locking gazes with each other, alone and in the same room, her heart immediately began to quicken a little. She forced herself to calm down and asked again, So, what instructions do you have for me, Emperor Yun? Please don't hesitate to tell me. No, excuse me, I mean no, it's not an instruction. Surprisingly, the usually unflappable Emperor Yun looked a bit nervous. I just wanted to ask about, last time. His stuttering words and slightly shifty gaze were all clear signs that he was nervous. It immediately chipped away at Shui Yingyue's own calm. What mother-in-law said last time? What are your thoughts about it? Yun Qi then stared straight into Shui Yingyue's eyes as if finishing those words had finally freed him from his nervousness. What he said and his piercing gaze caused Shui Yingyue's heart to skip a beat. Her own eyes became as shifty as Yun Qi's were earlier. She obviously knew what he meant. It was impossible not to when Cheng Wangxiao couldn't speak 3 sentences without bringing it up every time Yun Qi visited. In fact, it was starting to look like she would nag them both for the rest of her life, unless they did exactly as she wished. Mother has lectured me on many things. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Emperor Yun. At this point, Shui Yingyu couldn't even claim that her reactions were natural anymore. Please clarify, Emperor Yun. Yun Qi looked a bit disappointed, but the corners of his lips quickly curled into a smirk. Then both his gaze and his words grew invasive. Do you really not understand what I'm talking about? While speaking, he stepped closer and closer to Shui Yingyu. They were standing very close to each other to begin with. Shui Yingyu was unable to react in time before Yun Qi had gotten right in front of her. She opened her lips to say something, but his manly scent right at the tip of her nose robbed her of whatever words she was going to say. She was one of the 4 god children of the Eastern divine region before she became the glazed light realm king. Sometime after that, she even became the older sister-in-law of Emperor Yun himself. There had never been an unglamorous moment in Shui Yingyue's life. One might even say that she was currently enjoying some of the highest positions available in the god realm right now. However, she was as pure as a piece of blank paper in regards to romance. She had no idea how to react in this situation, much less deal with it accordingly. She was as powerless as a baby rabbit under Yun Qi's shadow, aura, and gaze. Her back suddenly hit something hard. She had no idea that she had backed herself into a corner until then. Very well. If you won't say it, then I will. The soft, gentle voice felt like a tangible thing playing away at her heartstrings. It was only now Shui Yingyu realized that his eyes were just inches away from her, and his breath was almost brushing against her cheeks. You? If he was anyone else, she would have stabbed them with the jade rivulet sword before they even came within 10 steps of her. But he was Yun Qi, and his aura, his eyes, everything about him tore away at her resistances and invaded her soul itself. She was scared when he said, if you won't say it, then I will, but she couldn't deny feeling a great deal of expectation as well. However, instead of saying the words, his lips kept moving ever closer to her own. Her brain lost the ability to think. She couldn't muster even the slightest bit of resistance in her body. She somehow managed to turn her head slightly to one side, but what did it matter? Her heartbeat was rocketing off the charts, and her eyes closed involuntarily when her senses became too much to bear. It was at this moment a purple gleam suddenly shone in his warm eyes. It slipped right through Shui Yingyue's glabella and into her soul. It was the profound handle soul search. Shui Yingyu immediately froze like a statue. Her shut eyes slowly opened, but there was none of the radiance from a moment ago. Not wasting even a second, Yun Qi asked as quickly as he could. 7 years ago, on the day the heaven-smiting devil emperor left the primal chaos, was Meiyin guarding me the whole time I was unconscious in the glazed light realm. The soul of a divine master was immeasurably powerful. Although Yun Qi's profound energy and soul energy were absolutely superior to Shui Yingyue's, there was still no way he could have soul-searched her normally. That was why he had employed this most despicable method. Shui Yingyu wasn't guarded against him to begin with, and the moves he put on her had put her in one of, if not the most disarrayed, positions she had been in her life. That was why the profound art had ultimately succeeded. Even so, he only had an extremely short amount of time to question her before she broke free. Shui Yingyu opened her mouth and answered in a wooden tone, Meiyin was guarding you the whole time. She never left my side for even an instant, did she? Yun Qi asked again. Shui Yingyue's pupils started trembling unnaturally. Her soul was already starting to struggle against the profound art. Not even an instant. The answer froze Yun Qi's expression completely. Lying was impossible while the profound handle soul search was active. A very short pause later, his mind clinging onto the last straw of hope like his very life depended on it, he asked one last question in a weak voice. Did Meiyin ask you and your father to answer that she was gone for a short moment if there came a day I asked you this specific question? The struggle in Shui Yingyue's eyes were reaching a breaking point, but she still managed to squeeze out a slightly garbled, yes. Yun Qi's mind dissolved into white thunder. Ji, Shui Yingyue finally broke out of the trance. Leaning against the wall and pressing a hand to her forehead, she stared at Yun Qi in panic and asked, What did you do to me? He didn't give her an answer. Eyes unfocused and complexion deathly pale, he turned away and slowly made toward the exit with stiff, powerless footsteps. He looked like a soulless zombie. I'm back, sister. Shui Meiyin noticed that the atmosphere was off the second she descended outside the room. Shui Yingyue was frowning deeply, and her aura exuded deep disturbance. Shui Qianheng was standing next to her with a serious expression on his face as well. Yun Qi was nowhere to be seen. What happened? Shui Meiyin asked as a bad feeling rose in her heart. I'm the one who should be asking you that. Shui Yingyue exhaled slowly. What happened to Yun Qi? Shui Meiyin strode forward and caught Shui Yingyue's sleeve. You first, sister. What happened? It was because Shui Yingyue's expression was a mixture of puzzlement, worry, and indignation. He used a most despicable method to confuse me before taking temporary control of my soul using a strange method. Then he asked me a couple of questions. Shui Meiyin's heart sank. What question? Her voice grew a tad weaker. Shui Yingyue's soul was powerful, so she was able to recall the short period she had lost her senses perfectly after calming down. He asked me that question you repeatedly reminded us to prepare for in the past 2 years, about whether you had left his side while he was unconscious. Shui Meiyin's lips quivered visibly. And how did you answer him? Shui Meiyin asked a bit dazedly. She knew about Yun Qi's profound handle soul search, and she knew that the affected person couldn't lie while they were under the effect. The truth, that you never left, Shui Yingyue replied. He also asked if you told us how to answer in case he brought up that question, and I answered yes. Shui Meiyin. He asked me the same question before, Shui Qianheng said seriously. I remembered what you said to me and told him that there was a time you had temporarily left his side, but it looks like he didn't believe me. Meiyin, Shui Qianheng asked solemnly despite his daughter's increasingly pale complexion, can you still not tell us what these questions are about? Yingyue had said that he looked like he had lost his soul when he left the room, and I can hardly believe there's anything left in this world that can affect him like that. Shui Meiyin moved her lips, but it took her a while to finally exhale her next question. Did he ask if I left before he was delivered to the glazed light realm? No, Shui Yingyue answered without hesitation. However, Shui Meiyin's face grew even whiter. I understand. I'll go look for him. Don't come after us. Shui Meiyin left the room after those parting words. She looked exactly the same as Yun Qi had. For a long time, Shui Qianheng and Shui Yingyue could only exchange silent glances with each other. Beneath a tall, dry, ancient, and wilted tree, Yun Qi sat quietly while gazing into the distance. A couple of dead leaves would occasionally fall on top of his head, but they were instantly blown away or crushed to pieces by his chaotic aura. Shui Meiyin bit her lips as she slowly walked toward him. Her footsteps sounded unsettling on the thick, dead leaves. After she arrived next to him, she stared at one side of his face and called out silently, Big brother, Yun Qi. Yun Qi didn't turn his head to face her. He continued staring forward as he began in a hoarse voice. You provided a proper explanation to all of my doubts and contradictions. You tried to make a vicious oath to convince me of your words, and your final explanation is something that I cannot refute even now. But even so, I wasn't able to convince myself. Do you know why? It's because everything we had talked about up to this point falls under suspicion or possibility, except one. I knew for certain that you lied to me about that one thing. Shui Meiyin bit her lips even harder. She knew what Yun Qi was talking about, and she had in fact worked to fix that flaw in her lie a long time ago. In the end, though, it wasn't. Yun Qi continued, back when you were explaining everything to me, you told me in no uncertain terms that you had teleported the blue pole star to the southern divine region after the news of my transformation into a devil person, and the subsequent manhunt was spread throughout the primal chaos. After that, an unconscious me was delivered to the glazed light realm. However, I knew that the blue pole star couldn't have been teleported to the southern divine region during that time. Shui Meiyin sounded like she was about to cry, but she knew that no amount of explanation would be enough at this point. Wuxin had engraved that scene with the eternal imagery stone at Floating Cloud City. Yun-Chi said with absolute certainty. He couldn't mistake his own hometown. As the small city of a lower realm, Floating Cloud City follows an incredibly strict and rapid day-night cycle. The heaven-smiting devil emperor was the one who chose her own time to leave, and she informed me about it very quickly. If I were to translate that time to profound sky continent time, it should be in the Zai hours, between 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. In other words, during the night at Floating Cloud City. I was betrayed the moment the heaven-smiting devil emperor left the primal chaos. The void illusion stone Qianheng used to knock me out, then teleported me to where Luo Changsheng and Hu Poyun were. Thanks to Waiao's soul stealing, I was able to read the memories the sword sovereign had sealed away in Luo Changsheng's mind. It was how I knew that I was saved by Hu Poyun. I also knew the exact time and star realm where they had encountered me. At full speed, it would only take Hu Poyun 2 hours or so to deliver me from that star realm to the glazed light realm. The profound sky continent would have just entered the Chu hours, between 1 am to 3 a.m. by then. Even if Hu Poyun, for whatever reason, only traveled at half his top speed and took 4 whole hours to deliver me to glazed light realm, it still wouldn't be daytime at Floating Cloud City. If you had teleported the blue pole star before I was delivered to the glazed light realm, then the phenomenon Wuxin engraved should have happened at night. However, the eternal imagery stone made it clear that it had happened during the daytime. The purple flash, the soul-imbued barrier, the illusory glazed light jades, he could have hypnotized himself to believe all of her explanations. But this one confirmed lie was enough to destroy everything. Shui Meiyin's lip was almost bleeding at this point, but she still didn't refute a single word. She couldn't, even if she could convince herself to lie and say, "Who knows, maybe Hu Poyun did take 4 to 6 hours to make it to the glazed light realm, and he took a nap somewhere in the middle." It would only take Yun-Chi a bit of effort to confirm the time he was delivered to the glazed light realm. Shui Qianheng knew about it, Shui Yingyue knew about it, Hu Poyun knew about it. If Yun-Chi put his mind to it, he could even confirm the exact instant he had arrived in the glazed light realm. On my way here, I told myself again, and again it was just a slip of the tongue or a misremembered memory, that you had teleported the blue pole star after I arrived in the glazed light realm. In order to prove that my impossibly flimsy theory was true, I even asked for confirmation from your father, and he gave me the answer I wanted. He told me that you had left for a short period when I was unconscious. However, Yun-Chi closed his eyes and slowed his voice. My Meiyin is such an incredibly smart and scrupulous girl. You may not know a thing about the profound sky continent back then, but you have visited it enough for the past 2 years to become familiar with its various characteristics and features. You would have found out that its day-night cycle, weather, seasonal changes, and more were almost exactly identical to when it was still in the eastern divine region. You wouldn't grow complacent either. That secret you buried in your heart would never allow you to do so. It was a matter of time before a smart girl like you realized the flaw in your lie. When the phenomenon had happened, practically everyone in Floating Sky City could confirm that it had happened during the daytime. When you compared it to the time you had supposedly performed the feat, though, you realized that it should have been nighttime in Floating Cloud City. It would be difficult for you to explain yourself if one day, for whatever reason, I found out about this. The possibility was very low, but you're not someone who would let something like this go without trying to fix it. You began thinking of a way to fix your lie. Perhaps you could say that you misspoke, and that you really teleported the blue pole star while I was unconscious. Perhaps you even spoke with your father and your sister so that they would corroborate your lie. That is why I didn't believe your father's answer immediately. When I was alone with your sister, I used the profound handle soul search to ensure that the answer I got would be the absolute truth. Shui Meiyin already knew what had happened after that. When Shui Meiyin had told the truth to Yun-Chi, she had purposely mentioned that she had teleported the blue pole star to the southern divine region before he was delivered to the glazed light realm to cover this up. It was because she knew that she hadn't taken a single step away from Yun-Chi during the period he was unconscious. Both Shui Qianheng and Shui Yingyue could attest to that. She never imagined that it would become the biggest flaw in her lie. No, thanks to Yun-Chi's profound handle soul search, even her attempts to fix that flaw had become ironclad proof that she had lied. The blue pole star couldn't possibly have been teleported before I was delivered to the glazed light realm, but when I was unconscious in the glazed light realm, you didn't take a single step away from me. Not only that, you expressly told your father and sister to lie in case I asked. Yun-Chi had to take a moment to calm his breathing. As matters stand, are you still going to lie to me, Meiyin? Shui Meiyin slowly sat down beside Xianxia and hugged his arm. From time to time, her thin shoulders would shake as if she was sobbing. She couldn't say anything for a long time. When she realized that the lie encompassing her older sister, her father, and herself had been revealed, she knew then that she could no longer even feign ignorance. Xianxia finally turned toward her and placed both hands on her shoulders. Tell me, the person whom the heaven-smiting devil emperor gave the world piercer and the world-defying heaven manual, it was Xianxia Qingyue? Right. Tell me, afraid to meet his eyes, Shui Meiyin shook her head strongly before saying in a near-begging voice, Can you stop your questions here, big brother Xianxia? Please just treat all of this as a dream, and believe that she is still that vile woman who wanted to hurt and kill you, please. Kill me, hurt me. Xianxi's voice started shaking, his expression growing more and more painful. But she's Qingyue, how could she do either of those things? He still remembered the 2 times Xianxia Qingyue had tried to kill him. The first time it happened in front of the wall of primal chaos, and the second time it happened outside the destroyed blue pole star. Both times she had done something odd. She had summoned the purple pylon divine sword and wreathed it in an extraordinary amount of purple pylon divine power. Xianxia Qingyue was the almighty moon god emperor at the time, and he was just a lowly divine king. If Xianxia Qingyue had really wanted to kill him, forget the purple pylon divine sword or the absurd amount of power she had summoned. She could have done it with the merest flick of a finger. At the time, everyone thought that it was just Xianxia Qingyue showing everyone just how resolved she was at slaying a devil person and cutting ties with Xianxia. All of them, including himself, believed that she wanted to kill him with the most ruthless power she was able to wield and leave not even a speck of him behind. However, if she was the master of the world piercer, if she had unleashed the terrific purple pylon divine power to hide the world piercer's crimson glow, if she had planned to send him away with the world piercer right before the purple power of the purple pylon divine sword struck, the world piercer's spatial teleportation was seamless and leaves no traces behind. With the purple pylon divine power as cover, no one would suspect that the vanished Xianxia had really been teleported to the northern divine region. While everyone thought that he was dead, he would be able to grow in secret and without hindrance. He recalled the words she had said during the 2 times she had tried to kill him, and they now took on a completely different meaning. Xianxia, I admit that I am partly responsible for this situation you're in, but you are a devil person. You understand why I have to be merciless, don't you? But don't worry, we were husband and wife. I promise to annihilate you completely. Think on what you should do after you've reached the underworld. Will you turn into a crying wraith or a vengeful devil god in the hell of the afterlife? I very much look forward to that day. Now die. At the time, he only felt pain and hatred toward her cold, ruthless words. Moreover, both of her murder attempts had been thwarted right before they could be fulfilled. The first time, the enslaved Qianheng Yinger had teleported him away with the void illusion stone. The second time, the concealed Muk Shunian had interrupted her. Tell me now it was her, wasn't it? Xianxi's tone was starting to turn hysterical. She was the master of the world piercer. She was the one who engraved the illusory glazed light jades. She was the one who teleported the blue pole star. It was her. It was all her, right? Shui Meiyin shook her head repeatedly even as tears started falling off her cheeks. Please don't ask me any more. I can't say it. Why did this projection have to appear after the dust had settled? And why did it have to capture the purple pylon divine light of all things? For the longest time, Xianxia Qingyue had been a nightmare that Xianxia had refused to even think about. In a twist of irony, the very same nightmare had given birth to an unprecedented level of obsession, and the need to discover the truth when Xianxia saw the projection. It had exposed even the flaws that couldn't be considered flaws in her lies completely, much less the actual flaw. Worst of all, everything was collapsing faster, fiercer, and more irreversibly than even the worst-case scenario she had imagined.